Chapter 61, Reborn, Gunboat Fierce. The best in the world. Title: Special Effects. The huge surprise came suddenly, and Byron, the designer and owner, was immediately dizzy. Regardless of whether it is a person, a ship, or a holy relic, the titles on them that are deeply rooted in people's hearts represent real power. Among these titles, of course, there are various famous world bests. For example, the world's first matchlock gun, the world's first cannon, the world's most powerful gunpowder formula, the world's fastest horse. These are well known in the extraordinary world. Of course, fame and legend alone would not be enough. If a media tycoon spreads false information every day through the newspapers he controls and claims to be the richest person, even if thousands of people were deceived into believing that he was the richest man, he would not receive the corresponding title, because it doesn't live up to its reputation. The owner of the title must truly influence history through some event, or will undoubtedly influence history, in order to gain recognition from the law and the world. The matchlock changed the mode of war, the cannon was the god of war, the fastest horse could improve the horse breed, increase transportation efficiency and cavalry strength, but the real impact on the world is more important than the former. The same is true for the Golden Deer, which represents the highest speed of current three-masted sailing ships. Perhaps someone used forbidden knowledge, rare objects, or other extraordinary means to make the ship run faster than the Golden Deer. However, the design and construction technology of the Golden Deer can be replicated on a large scale, thus improving the overall level of the shipbuilding industry for mankind. Even after Byron, the inventor, passed away, other craftsmen and naturalists can also see the most original first-hand information in the inventor's mind directly from the public library of the legal network. The inheritance of civilization has made great contributions. This is a victory for knowledge and a victory for human civilization. The world's fastest three-masted ship effect on the basis of the designed normal speed, it can increase it by an additional 20%, and the impact of severe weather such as big waves, strong winds, heavy rain, etc. on it will be reduced by 20%. It may be because this ship is just a modified version, and it is still missing the V-shaped bottom and 5:1 aspect ratio from the most complete version on the design drawing. There is still considerable room for improvement. Therefore, it is the name Golden Hind rather than the ship itself that received the title Special Effect, the fastest three-masted sailing ship in the world. If Byron rebuilds any three-masted warship in the future, as long as he gives it the name Golden Hind, it will inherit all the special effects. The records on the pirate ship in the ship's log have also changed drastically. Golden Deer, a Tudor-style three-masted sailing ship that was improved from a galleon. Specifications: total length 23.5 meters, width 6 meters, draft 2.55 meters, displacement 200 tons, maximum basic speed 11 knots, bonus speed 13 knots, capacity 100 people, actual number 56 people. Armament: after heavy outfitting, there were 7 6-pound cannons on each side of the open deck and a 32-pound carronade on the rear deck. Sails: bow jib, lifting sail, foremast square sail, mainmast, and mizzenmast fore and aft sails. Title effect: the world's fastest three-masted sailing ship. Extraordinary pirate officers: Captain Wild Hunt Storm Knight Byron, First Mate Iron Wall Oath Knight Brooke, Second Mate Phantom Blade Guts. Contract object: 27 alienated man-eating sharks. Although this type of mixed sailing ship is small in size and cannot carry many large-caliber artillery, it is of little significance in direct naval battles against naval fleets. But it can be said that they were born for privateering. Particularly worth mentioning is the 32-pound carronade on the rear deck that is covered with a rainproof cover and looks as terrifying as a monster. This was the last tearful sail before Golden Palm Trading Company left. Although Byron almost emptied out most of the savings of the Golden Deer, in his opinion it was all worth it. The unscrupulous businessman Michael may make some money, but he will definitely not lose anything. This type of artillery has a large caliber and a short barrel, and is between a mortar and a cannon. Compared with ordinary cannons that are usually cast in one piece, this one is made using a boring machine. A hydraulic flywheel drives the barrel to rotate, and gradually pushes a fixed iron column into the solid barrel and then drills out of the barrel. The bore shape is more regular than that of a cast barrel. The spherical projectile fits more tightly against the inner wall of the barrel, making it less likely for gunpowder gas to leak when fired, and providing greater effective thrust. The barrel walls can be thinner and the projectiles can be made larger. Therefore, its lethality at a distance of dozens of meters is much greater than that of standard artillery of the same weight. The carronade, which fired a 32-pound projectile the size of a grapefruit, weighed only one-third of a standard cannon of the same caliber. A 32-pound-long cannon that served as the main gun of a second-level battleship often weighed 3 tons, while the same 32-pound carronade weighed less than 1 ton. It's similar to the standard 12-pound and 9-pound artillery that fires fist-sized projectiles. The ultimate victory in robbing a merchant ship must be a boarding battle. The carronade can intimidate merchant ships with high firepower output at close range and even sweep across the opponent's open deck. Byron believed that although not many people knew about its value now, this kind of artillery would shine on pirate ships and even small warships in the future. The unscrupulous businessman Michael still sold it at a low price. Using a second-level ship's main gun to rob, cruel. So cruel, it has high-speed mobility, is equipped with both long-range cannon and short-range carronade, and can attack at both long and short ranges. This ship will surely become a nightmare for all enemies in the future. The only shortcoming is that the Marine Corps does not have enough manpower to create an overwhelming numerical advantage over ordinary merchant ships. But as long as we can successfully survive the battle at Anchor Bay, personnel will no longer be a problem. Looking left and right, Byron simply couldn't let go of this great treasure he had created with his genius idea. Already just under the tentacles. At this time, near the waterline, dark shark fins cut through the water and ran away into the distance. Those were 27 mutated man-eating sharks that served as knife-wielding guards. After they devoured blood-eye salmon and dozens of transforming secondary zombies in one breath, their bodies expanded even more. The blood in his eyes almost condensed into substance. There is no need to feed living people every 3 days as in the past. The blood produced by extraordinary people can be used instead. And the effect is much better than that of humans. By feeding it a few more times, the control effect can be completely solidified, and it will become an extension of Byron's eyes and ears that he can control at will. Turn, head into the wind, and sail close to the wind. Just as Byron ordered the ship to turn around and return to continue testing the ability of the foresail to catch the wind. Captain, at 1 o'clock, about 1.85 nautical miles, nautical mile equals kilometers, from our ship, there is a cloud of fog moving in a wrong path. It's coming towards us. The lookout on the mast suddenly issued an abnormal warning. At the same time, a group of man-eating sharks were also caught in the sea water in the north. Gradually, a strong smell of blood came from them, and they all became a little restless. Byron's weather intuition was also not lost, and he immediately sensed the abnormal weather changes on the opposite side. When I looked up, I saw a cloud of white mist in the distance floating towards me. And in the depths of the fog there was a huge black shadow, drifting closer and closer along the ocean current along the coast of the ice field. Chapter 62, T Tactics, hit the target with one shot. That looks like a pirate ship. Gus had rushed to the mainmast at the first possible moment and saw the outline of the dark shadow clearly. Golden Deer spread the fore and aft sail and pulled the turning halyard to change the foremast square sail into a fore and aft sail, completing the attitude adjustment from starboard tack to close sailing into the wind. Go against the wind. The huge black shadow on the opposite side was riding on the cold current along the nearby ice field, and the two sides soon met face to face. Byron was also able to see clearly that the black shadow that seemed to have experienced a brutal massacre and exuded a strong smell of blood was actually a pirate ship. The ship flying the black pirate flag maintained a sail break state. The sails on the foremast and mainmast are spread in opposite directions, and the mainmast generates a thrust opposite to the direction of travel, breaking the sailboat. There is no need to drop anchor, and you can achieve relative wind stillness, allowing the sailboat to drift slowly with the wind direction and ocean currents. When there is an emergency, the sail can be quickly adjusted to the windward angle using the turning halyard to restore maneuverability and engage in combat as soon as possible. Looking at its current state, it seemed as if it was killed completely by an unknown enemy before the crew could react and switch to combat mode. This is the Rainbow, which left the port yesterday along with a dozen privateers and the best confidant candidate. When the distance was close enough to see the somewhat tattered pirate flag, Byron couldn't help but exclaimed in surprise. The ship log in his eyes clearly records the information of every ship he has seen. Just one glance at the Rainbow pirate flag on the mast and he immediately recognized the identity of the ship. It was the moment when they could clearly observe each other. The privateering ship Rainbow on the opposite side suddenly woken up like a frightened beast. The sail that was opened in the opposite direction returned to its original position instantly, catching the level 5 wind blowing from the north, and rushed towards the Golden Deer with great momentum. No signals were sent during this period, nor was there the slightest intention to communicate. The pirates even shouted excitedly when there was no pirate ship to plunder normally. What's even more strange is that when the boat moves, the surrounding mist also moves with it, as if the mist came from the boat itself. Clang, 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 second mate Gus on the mast immediately sounded the alarm. Byron immediately issued an order. First level combat readiness. All crew members immediately take up combat positions. The opponent's ship was in a favorable windward direction, while their ship was just leeward. How similar is this to the confrontation between the man-eating shark and the severe? Moreover, there was no change in wind speed to save the situation this time. The Rainbow, which was in the upper hand, had the help of ocean currents, which could increase its speed by at least 1 knot. The Rainbow's advantage is even greater than that of the Severe. But the crew members on the Golden Deer who had experienced that battle showed no fear at this time, and their eyes were filled with excitement. This privateer was nothing more than a pirate ship converted from a small armed merchant ship, and was not much stronger than the original man-eating shark. Even though the current situation seems a little weird, they firmly believe that they will be the winner. Would they be afraid of being hunted down while driving the world's fastest 3-masted sailing ship? It's a joke. Byron also calmly gave the order. Order, get to the upper wind, maneuver into the wind, and go around to the windward of the Rainbow. There is no doubt that seizing the upper hand is the only way to fight single-ship duels and fleet-decisive battles in the era of sail. It is easier to attack the enemy below the waterline, the wind increases the range of the artillery shells, and the wake creates powerful maneuverability. Everyone wants these benefits. In the past, it was impossible to get the full-rigged man-eating shark with only square sails, but now it is no problem to get the Golden Deer equipped with 2 huge longitudinal sails. The sail is long, and we're heading 3 compass points north by west. Sail close to the wind and show it what it means to be the best in the world. The longitudinal sail can be aligned with the wind at 30-40 degrees, while the transom sail can only be aligned at 60 degrees, combined with its own tidal special effects. The Golden Deer is now like a team of light cavalry fighting a group of heavy infantry. There is sufficient mobility to support the powerful tactics of when the enemy advances, we retreat, when the enemy retreats, we pursue, when the enemy stays, we harass, when the enemy is tired, we attack. As ordered. Rigger Thomas immediately instructed the riggers to adjust the sails using the dense white rigging ropes on the ship to face the wind at the best angle. The Rainbow at 10 o'clock also obviously understood the intention of the Golden Deer, and pulled its sail to the limit according to inertial thinking. It used a tactical action of adjusting with the wind and also began to sail against the wind. The Rainbow was 5 nautical miles northwest, circling upwind at an angle of 60 degrees, while approaching the Golden Deer. The Golden Deer was also facing the wind at an angle of about 35 degrees, 11.25 degrees per compass point. Before the battle, the 2 pirate ships were like 2 leaves dancing in the wind, zigzagging forward and getting closer and closer. It is an eternal truth that whoever has better windward maneuverability will gain the upper hand. The Rainbow gradually realized that something was wrong. Its wind fighting efficiency was totally incomparable to that of the Golden Deer, which was of similar size. As if he was risking his life, he adjusted the direction again, trying to use the square sail to speed up and rush towards the Golden Deer with the wind. Grab the T for me. Blast its ass. The Golden Deer was not afraid at all, and cut into the west with great agility, brushing past its stern. The cannon batteries were loaded with solid shells, and the carronades were loaded with shotgun shells. Target the stern building, shooting from front to back. 3, 2, 1, fire. When the distance was within 200 meters, Byron decisively ordered all long-range cannons to fire. Fire! The first mate and the gunner shouted together, and the roar echoed throughout the ship. Boom! 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 Orange-red flames flashed one after another. The 7 6-pound guns on the port side fired in turn, and one after another, the hot cast iron shells penetrated into the tall poop of the Rainbow. Whether it is a merchant ship or a warship, the stern is full of officers' bedrooms, or a large living area consisting of cabins and balconies. These exquisite yet fragile glass curtain walls are not much stronger than a layer of window paper in the face of naval gunfire. The spherical projectiles that passed through the stern of the ship could not be stopped at all. They all bounced and screamed across the entire gun deck of the privateer, penetrating front to back and smashing everything there. Or it would strike the deck or beams, sending out a rain of deadly fragments. That's the beauty of grabbing the T. You act as the horizontal ship, using your side with artillery fire to face the other side's stern or bow, which has no weapons and very weak defense. Deal tons of damage easily, hit the target with one shot. The bloody smell from the privateering ship became stronger and stronger, causing the man-eating sharks lurking in the sea to become restless. However, the people on the Golden Deer did not hear any human voices. Instead, they heard a sharp cry coming from the cabin. "Continue to reload. We will circle back to the windward side of the enemy ship and fire another T-salvo at the bow of the enemy ship." Byron waved his hand. Having the advantage of mobility is the capital for being willful. The advantage in mobility allowed him to take risks and adopt more dangerous tactics, thereby achieving overwhelming combat results. The significance of sea trials is not only to test the performance of the ship, but also to explore a set of combat plans suitable for the ship. In the future, the Tudor hybrid will take into account long-range artillery battles beyond 200 meters, but will pay more attention to short-range artillery battles of about 100 meters. At this attack distance, the 32-pound carronade has absolute firepower dominance. However, the Rainbow is not completely a target that can be easily manipulated. Although its speed is slow, its turning radius is also smaller. He successfully avoided the disaster and turned his windward side towards the Golden Hind. When they passed each other at a close distance of 100 meters, Byron, holding the trump card in his hand, looked fearless and shouted orders to the artillery crew carronades, "Prepare to clear the enemy's open decks." 3, 2. Just as the flintlock igniter in the gunner's hand had fallen onto the Carron powder pool. On the opposite deck, a figure wearing prisoner uniform but with eyes replaced by blood-red silver coins also waved. Boom boom boom. Billowing smoke rose up. But the 6 guns on the open deck of the Rainbow did not fire normal shells, but 6 oversized parasites whale lice. Chapter 63. Remarks on the launch. Hey guys, the new book has been on the road for over a month and will finally be on the shelves tomorrow, Thursday. The Pirate Kingship is the 4th book of Whale, aka, The Conqueror on the Mast. The first one was fantasy, a fine product, with an average subscription of 4,500. The second one was science fiction, and I wrote all about the Laniakea supercluster in one go, but the background was too big, so it failed miserably. The third fantasy book, a masterpiece, with an average subscription of 6,200 when it was completed. In the 4th book, I wrote fantasy again, still on the theme of the Great Voyages, but from a different perspective, starting with pirates. Many bigwigs have noticed that the inspiration comes from the War of the Roses in British history, which is also the prototype of the story of Game of Thrones. But there is no palace fighting or intrigue. The real romance of pirates is huge ships, cannons, treasures, fine wines, and the unknown world. The outline of this book was formed together with the previous book, The Fruits of Killing. The original idea was to have stories taking place in the East and the West under similar backgrounds. The timeline should be this book first, and the previous book later. The various materials prepared are quite sufficient, including sailing warships, European swordsmanship, various black magic, history through geography, Viking pirates, pirate legends, and Norse mythology. I haven't counted exactly how many physical books I bought, but there are probably 4 or 5 stacks. There was a lot of preparation before I started writing the book. Not counting the more than 20 pages of notes on nautical knowledge, the outline, setting collection, and storyline added up to words. I was basically busy for 2 months after the previous book was finished. The main idea is to create a sailing story that combines real background, epic legends, and fantasy elements. Because many book fans have reported that the biggest problem with fantasy is that it is difficult to remember people's names, we have specially designed a power system of titles. Every relatively important supporting character has his or her own title or nickname, but no one knows what the specific effect is. In short, I have eaten all the recommendations from Xiao Laba, New Books, and Sanjiang, and ranked second on the new book list. I would like to thank every reader who supports me. Thank you. Your support is the inexhaustible motivation for Whale to write every book carefully. I would also like to thank my editor-in-chief Ching Ting and editor Jiang Cha for giving me a lot of valuable suggestions. Of course, I am also a loyal confidant of Kitty and Group 10, Laughs. It will be available tomorrow at 12:05 noon, Thursday. 4 chapters will be updated in a row. Please support. Orts. Chapter 64, Human-Faced Whale Lice, Physical Exorcism. Boom. Thunder exploded, and the 32-pound carronade, with a caliber equivalent to the main gun of a second-class battleship, also spewed flames at the same time. The shotgun filled with 500 small iron balls exploded in the air, and the powerful kinetic energy turned them into a deadly metal storm. In a close-range artillery attack of 100 meters, there is no need to consider the hit rate of shotgun shells. It can sweep away everything even with your eyes closed. The first to suffer were the 6 whale lice in the air, which were much slower than conventional shells. Most of them were torn into pieces of flesh and blood that flashed with blue fluorescent fluids in mid-air, and fell into the sea like rags. Only one of them managed to escape the blazing metal storm and slammed onto the deck of the Golden Deer with a clatter. It fell right at Byron's feet. Squeak, with a shrill sound, it instantly bounced into the air, and its 12 hooked limbs opened, ready to hug Byron's face. Byron didn't need to take action. The guardian knight Brooke, who was always guarding by his side, took a step forward and swung his sword, splitting it in half with a powerful old man's strike. It also used its own corpse to demonstrate to all the pirates who were just beginning to learn the fisher sword technique why leaping into the air and giving up dodging in close combat was the stupidest move. Of course, if you have the incredible skill of stepping on the instep of your right foot with your left foot to spiral into the air, that's a different story. Brooke used the tip of his sword to move the dead insects on the ground, and couldn't help but frown. Captain, this thing is really whale lice. But isn't its size a bit too big? A dark blue human face has grown on its flat back shell. There are traces of spirits on its body. Especially in his spiritual vision, there was a hideous human soul inside the parasite that was slowly dissipating. At this time, Guts, who was huddled on the mast, pointed at the rainbow that was reloading and exclaimed, "Captain, look at those pirates across the way. Each of them has a whale louse with a human face on the back of his head. The guy with the bloody silver coins as eyes has a particularly large whale louse on the back of his head. Normal whale lice are a type of marine parasite that cannot swim. They are only 0.8 cm to 2 cm in length and are strictly speaking a type of shrimp. But it has a flat body, a degenerate tail, and hooked ends of its limbs, and it often attaches to the skin of its whale host. Sometimes the number of whale lice on a single baleen whale can reach 10. But these whale lice are different. Not only was it as big as a human face, it also occupied the heads of a group of pirates, seemingly using it to completely control their minds. After entering the 3-meter range, Byron's ship log also read the history of the whale louse. Grotesque human-faced whale louse, a combination of a drowned person in the sea and a whale louse huddled together for warmth. It can only survive for a long time by parasitizing on the surface of other organisms. Its favorite organisms are various large whales, followed by humans who have abundant brains. They came from an accident during a profane black mass ritual. The good news is that this monster cannot swim and can only be spread between hosts through close contact, so be careful of boarding battles. Taboo, don't let it see your face. The essence of the grotesque and the evil spirits are similar, except that one tends to be outside of human and the other looks more like a human. They will kill people according to certain rules just like the ghosts behind. At the top of this category of existence are the immortal and indestructible cursed spirits. As for the human-faced whale lice here, it is undoubtedly a social monster. The original goal of Black Mass was to attract one monster each, and the privateer captain's plan was to attract 2 or 3 at most. Unfortunately, the Rainbow encountered a large number of whale lice parasitizing a dying whale, and failed to seal the leader of the tribe into the body of the sacrifice. All the crew members on the ship were also infested with human-faced whale lice. Afterwards, the whale lice, which cannot swim, use their boats to ambush and hunt other ships and humans in order to parasitize their companions who did not get the body. The information provided by the ship's log was limited, so Byron naturally didn't know what exactly happened last night. However, we can also infer from the existing intelligence that the privateering ships that left the port yesterday were most likely not up to any good purpose. Especially the 2 silver coins in the leader's eye sockets, which made him look particularly familiar. At this time, when the sacrificial leader saw that his artillery attack was ineffective, a sharp insect-like sound came from the back of his head. A large number of human-faced whale lice immediately swarmed into the cabin, but the previous attack had obviously caused them heavy losses. Most of them were missing arms and legs and looked really miserable. But the total number is still considerable. If someone with trypophobia takes a look at it, he would be scared to death. At this time, the 2 ships were sailing side by side from west to east, with the Golden Deer firmly occupying the upper wind in the north and the Rainbow falling to the leeward side in the south. The helmsman on the Rainbow suddenly turned the rudder to the left and rammed the Golden Deer hard. Firing with artillery was too inefficient, so they preferred boarding battles and simply overwhelmed their opponents with numbers, just like they had overwhelmed the Rainbow at the beginning. Head into the wind. Sail to windward and away from the battle line. While giving the order, Byron turned the steering wheel in his hand in the direction of the wind. He already knew that whale lice could not swim and could only rely on the hose to move, so of course he could not let such a weird thing hit him. As long as the two pirate ships do not come into direct contact and only rely on artillery retail, as many of them as come will be killed. As the Golden Deer re-entered the port side heading nearly sailing into the wind state, the fully sail-rigged Rainbow was immediately caught in the wake created by the former, its maneuverability was greatly reduced, and it was left far behind again. The parasites' angry chirping sounds came one after another, but they could not catch up with the other one no matter what. They could only withstand the fierce artillery fire and vent their anger by continuously launching whale lice of their kind onto the deck of the Golden Deer. 8 Fingers, take your marines. Upon hearing Byron's order, the latter immediately understood. He took out a small silver wine flask from his waist bag and took a big gulp of the blood brew heroic water inside. The 20 carefully selected pirates behind him followed suit. Roar! Their skin turned blood red, and tremendous heat rose up, even forming a thick white mist above their heads. He followed Byron's order, untied the pirate's turban and covered his entire head, leaving only his eyes exposed. Make the human-faced whale louse unable to see their faces and break this bizarre killing condition. Then, groups of 3 or 5 people rushed forward with boarding axes and frantically chopped the whale lice that jumped up into pieces. Not bad, it looks good. Byron nodded with satisfaction. It would be convenient to initially train a group of capable subordinates. At least it would save him the energy of dealing with miscellaneous soldiers. Although this group of Marines had to endure a whole day of weakness after 15 minutes of real warrior training, it was completely worth it. According to his plan, this period of time should be enough for the two ships to maintain an effective range of 100 meters and find a way to kill these parasites that are like dog skin plasters. The method is simple and direct. Ammunition explodes, physical exorcism. Although Byron did not have the extraordinary means of a gunpowder artist, it was not completely impossible to achieve it purely by relying on science. He immediately called all the gunners on board, pointed at the hull that was tilted against the wind, and explained his plan to them. The gunpowder magazine of an armed merchant ship was usually placed in the hold below the forecastle. If a most dangerous and powerful incendiary bomb were to penetrate the powder magazine, it would create the most spectacular explosion at sea. He glanced at every gunner in front of him with an earnest look containing encouragement. Although the enemy's ship tilted when nearly facing the wind, exposing the part below the waterline, we happened to have a 32-pound gun that could penetrate the hull. But detonating a gunpowder magazine also requires great artillery skills and luck. Given your artillery skills, you can probably fire 10 times in 15 minutes, and you have 10 chances to try. No matter which artillery group it is, as long as it can complete the task. I can directly reward him with a bottle of Angel's Kiss that is comparable to spiritual awakening potion. Commandment 9, as long as you accumulate merits, you can obtain resources, extraordinary knowledge, and promotion rituals. The resources therein represent the possibility of spiritual awakening, which is what they need most at the moment. Realizing that their captain was not joking, all the gunners widened their eyes and their subjective initiative was fully mobilized. He was ready to get the cup of blood brew. But Byron changed the subject at this point and added a condition: we don't have many chances. If we fail within 15 minutes, we will have to get out of the artillery range and give up the chance to exorcise the evil spirit. The failed gun crew would be deprived of its share of the spoils for the next year and would be responsible for all cleaning work on the open decks. The right to redeem merits will also be extended for 3 months. Think carefully before making a decision. Now tell me, who is willing to try to take on this task? The smart sailors have realized that the captain's goal is not only to eliminate enemy ships, but also to train crew members under relatively safe conditions. However, the pros and cons between rewards and punishments immediately made some gunners back off. Just when most people are hesitant. Captain, let me do it. The one who spoke decisively was not the old sea dog among the free pirates, but the young native slave Wyandotte. Chapter 47. Chapter 65, Big Destruction. Sacrifice Explosion. As he spoke, Wyandotte had already stepped forward and was looking at Byron expectantly. Others consider the opportunity cost more. Is it worth not having the chance to make meritorious contributions in the next 3 months? The native slave thought differently. The main sales location for those white-skinned indentured servants from various countries in the Old World was not in Anchor Bay, but in the colonies of various countries in the Banton Islands. The original destination of the natives of the Banton Islands was not here, but the slave markets of various countries in the Old World. The main purpose of selling them to other places was to make the slaves leave their familiar living environment and greatly increase the cost of escape. That's exactly what happened. Now the only person these native slaves on the ship can rely on is Captain Byron. They are also more eager than anyone else to seize every opportunity to turn things around. Byron took a deep look at this young man who was very prestigious among the native slaves, and scanned the ship log that recorded the specialties of each crew member. So I nodded decisively and agreed to his initiative. Then I'll wait and see, Mr. Wyandotte. Thank you for your kindness, Captain. The indigenous youth followed the old world etiquette and saluted by touching their chests. He immediately led his people to rush towards the 32-pound carronade and replaced the original gun crew. A gun crew usually consisted of 5 people, and Wyandotte himself served as the number 1 gunner, commonly known as the gun commander. After the last round was fired, the recoil of the gun caused the tackle to move violently backwards. The second gunner immediately stepped forward and cleaned the barrel with a long pole wrapped in a wet sponge, extinguishing any remaining sparks inside to prevent the propellant from igniting prematurely. Next to them, other logistics crew members who were responsible for supporting the work were already using furnaces to burn the solid cast iron bullets red hot. Gunner number 3 stuffed the following into the barrel: the propellant bag, the plug for fixing the projectile, a large lump of wet mud, the red-hot projectile, and the second plug. No wet mud is added during the normal firing process. The wet mud here is obviously to prevent the red-hot projectile from igniting the propellant. Although the scorching bullet is troublesome to use, its power can completely cover up this small flaw, and it has always been a favorite of gunners. After number 3 has finished loading the gunpowder, the number 2 gunner will use a bore rod to push them all to the bottom of the barrel to firmly tamp them down. Gunner number 4 pierced the powder bag in the barrel through the ignition hole and filled the powder pool with gunpowder. The gunners on both sides pulled the ropes to reset the guns, and the gunner Wyandotte was responsible for adjusting the firing angle and finally completing the aiming of the rainbow. The last gunner, number 5, waited for the order to fire with his flintlock in hand after he aimed at the target. These natives coordinated their movements extremely skillfully, and the whole process took only 1 minute, which amazed the old world pirates who were helping nearby. Just with this basic skill, you can firmly secure a place on the ship. It's just that the age of exploration has already begun for 70 years, and now the natives of the Banton Islands can no longer be described as primitive people. Many indigenous pirates made great names for themselves on the new routes, and no one was surprised or discriminated against them. North wind, wind speed 1.4 meters per second, wave height 105 meters, distance meters, the 2 ships are relatively stationary. Byron used the riding skill to control the Golden Hind to maintain distance, while reporting the shooting parameters to him through weather intuition and the navigation log. If there was a lighthouse sequence artillery expert on board, even if he was just a first-rank attendant, there would be no need for all this trouble. Intuition is already the most powerful sight for gunner expert. Byron couldn't help but think of the gunpowder artist in Anchor Bay, and couldn't help but sigh. That one is stronger, I really want it, it's much easier than training him from scratch. Just as the ship rose and fell regularly and reached its highest point, Wyandotte gave a decisive order. Fire! Boom! A visible red line of fire left a bright trail in the air and fell heavily on the forecastle of the Rainbow. As expected, the searing bullets easily pierced through the wooden hull. Unfortunately, it did not land on the gunpowder magazine, but continued to penetrate the hull on the other side and flew out. Keep reloading. Wyandotte was not impatient, and neither was Byron. Even in the dreadnought era of the past, at least 6 naval guns were needed to cooperate with the fire control system to launch a salvo to ensure a basic hit rate. In his opinion, the significance of training soldiers is greater than killing enemies. At worst, after the gunner fails, he can personally take action to remedy the situation. The 2 pirate ships, one advancing and the other retreating, entered into a tug of war. In this actual combat exercise that was like a sniper at sea, the crew's abilities were quickly honed into a whole. The coordination of artillery, warship maneuverability, turning performance, and windward performance gradually formed the complete combat capability that a pirate ship should have. 2 of the 7 shots fired in succession landed below the waterline, which was enough to demonstrate the superb artillery skills of the native Wyandottes. But just because of a little bit of luck, the explosion did not occur. The young Aboriginal man was so nervous that sweat broke out on his forehead. He held a pendant made of an eagle's beak around his neck and kept praying in the Aboriginal language. Byron also realized that the mission he issued might be too difficult for the current mortal crew. So I decided to help him again. Hand the steering wheel to Brooke, the sworn knight who also possesses the basic riding skill. He told everyone not to panic no matter what they saw, and walked to the stern alone. Facing the human-faced whale louse on the rainbow, his eyes lit up and he kept muttering, "I am a baleen whale, I am a baleen whale." Cognitive correction activate. Under the gaze of everyone, he seemed to have really turned into a baleen whale, the favorite of whale lice. Humans are intelligent and can realize that something is fake even if they can't see through it, but that's not the case with those silly weirdos. With strange squeaking sounds, they all rushed to the stern of the rainbow, which was also the place closest to the baleen whale in a straight line. The weight of hundreds of crew members and numerous whale lice immediately shifted the center of gravity of the privateer ship. This caused the bow part of the ship to lift up high, revealing more of the dark bottom coated with black material, to prevent erosion by shipworms, below the waterline. And this time, Wyandotte finally seized the opportunity. Fire! Along with the burst of cannon flames, there were two consecutive huge roars. A blazing fireball rose into the sky carrying with it countless broken limbs, insect corpses, wooden boards, and even bronze cannons. The countless human-faced whale lice hiding in the boat didn't even have time to jump into the sea to escape before they were completely engulfed by the raging flames. The privateer was destroyed. It exploded. Roar! The crew cheered and the gun crew member who fired the shot jumped up in excitement. Then, you guys divide it among yourselves. Byron removed the cognitive correction and without saying a word, he threw a bottle of Angel's Kiss to Wyandotte. He has his own set of management principles: result definition, one-to-one responsibility, process inspection, and immediate motivation, regardless of whether it is a trick or not. As long as the predetermined result is achieved and the person responsible can be rewarded on the spot, it will never be delayed until the next day. Seeing that the captain had fulfilled his promise according to the 10 Commandments of pirates, the crew cheered even more enthusiastically. Byron nodded to Wyandotte, who bowed deeply to him, and felt that he might really have the potential to become a lighthouse sequence artillery expert. Not only did he not feel any pain for the reward he received, but he was actually filled with joy at having discovered a promising talent. The battle is over. The indigenous youth, surrounded by his companions, walked into the cabin and couldn't wait to drink the Angel's Kiss. I didn't take the side effect of extremely longing for maternal love today to heart at all. But that's okay. Although there is no one here to sing a lullaby to Wyandotte or pat him on the butt to put him to sleep. But Byron had already prepared a cow in the lactation period in the cabin, hoping that it could help him. I've always been steady in my work. You are welcome, please call me the good captain of the North Sea. At this time, a group of man-eating sharks also swam over. While enjoying the feast, he did not forget to pick up all the complete spoils and the 2 octopus silver coins dropped by the sacrifice. This brought the number of silver coins in Byron's hand to 3, further completing the information. In addition to the original effect, whenever a murder occurs within 100 meters of the silver coin, the elements of the victim will be collected. The most representative group identity labels will be marked and enter the site of an unknown existence. As long as you carry silver coins with you, you will not be able to be divined by divinations below the high sequence, and you will not be tracked by the law. Logbook read out the second effect again. After the black mass begins, all beings holding silver coins are part of the ritual. It will definitely pursue the established group elements and eventually complete the aggregation of silver coins. During this time, even the silver coin makers can no longer control or spy on them, unless they also want to be targeted and become part of the ritual. There is also effect 3, it is said that 30 silver coins is the price for betraying the sun. The full name of the only God in the world is the Bound Creator, who bears the sins of all mankind with his own suffering. If the freaks can collect all 30 silver coins in a set, they can completely complete the Black Mass ritual and gain redemption. But it will eventually awaken the true master of the ritual. At the same time, the unlocking density of secret, Admiralty conspiracy, historical influence 20 has been increased from 70% to 75%. Byron felt that all he needed to know was the name of that being to fully understand the conspiracy of York and the Admiralty. By the way, in addition to historical revisionist and major concern, I got a third entry. After hearing the information Byron shared, Gus, whose hometown, friends and acquaintances were in Anchor Bay, was the first to get restless. No matter what the ritual ultimately points to, just a dozen weird and bizarre melees will be a huge disaster for Anchor Bay. Captain, we must go and inform Uncle Weber and get the sheriff and the law enforcement team ready. Of course, Byron could not allow Redbeard's plan to be carried out smoothly. The Privateer Alliance uses the Black Mass ritual to gather elements and prepare to face that thing. York and Redbeard were both afraid of becoming part of the ritual and coming into the sight of that being, so they didn't dare to have any more contact. I and the locals here have long been targeted by that thing, so we don't care if it looks at us anymore. We can completely replace the evil spirit. Byron's eyes lit up and he immediately ordered return. I may know how to break the impasse. Chapter 66, Chaos at Anchor Bay. The world's fastest three-masted sailing ship, the Golden Hind, was delayed for too long because of that naval battle. While they were still trying their best to return, night had already fallen again in Anchor Bay. Neither the free pirates nor the local residents in the bay were aware that danger was quietly approaching. Hey, Hall, look at the beach, what's that? I just saw something shiny. Two children holding wooden swords and wooden shields were playing and exercising on the island beach. They forgot the time to go home and seemed to have found some treasure. They dropped their weapons and ran to the beach, chasing each other. One on the left and one on the right surrounded the thing that seemed to have been washed ashore by the rising tide. To be more precise, it was a corpse. The expression on its face was somewhat hideous and distorted, as if it had experienced something extremely painful and terrifying before death. But amidst that pain, there was also a hint of a strange smile that made people feel cold in their hearts. There were two shiny silver coins in his eye sockets. It was they who reflected the lights on the shore that made one of the children notice their existence. Perhaps due to the different education they received since childhood, the two children were not afraid of the corpse in front of them at all. Instead, they were eager to try. I've heard my uncle say that before. At a pirate funeral, 2 coins are placed in the eye sockets of the deceased. These coins are used to purchase tickets for the ghost ship, which allows one to travel to the world of the dead. Those of noble status or those who are particularly cruel put gold coins. The most common practice is to put silver coins, and those of the lowest status may also put copper coins. This is probably just an unlucky guy who happened to drift in with the ocean current. But this guy has red hair, and he doesn't look like one of us from Taiwan. It's a waste to leave it here anyway, so why don't we each take a silver coin and buy a bottle of rum? I have long wanted to taste the taste of wine that only adults can drink, so let's drink to our heart's content this time. Okay, one for each of us. Without any disagreement, the two friends reached a consensus happily. But just as they each picked up a silver coin with a strange octopus pattern on it, the corpse suddenly opened its grey eyes, and reached out like lightning to grab the wrists of the two children holding the silver coins. The seal is lifted. Ah! Ah! With 2 short screams, the 2 children were dragged into the water by the corpse. Even though they were good swimmers as the people of the bay, the water that was right in front of them seemed far away and they could not swim up no matter how hard they swam. At the same time, the cold sea water in winter caused them to lose temperature quickly, and soon their hands and feet twitched and they became motionless. It took a while before they slowly floated to the surface of the water, also turning into 2 floating corpses. The corpse at the beginning returned to its original appearance. However, the bloody side of the octopus silver coin in the eye socket was facing upwards again, and the blood color was a little darker. Contained in it is the group element of the local Taiwanese people. Hero or villain, the resilience of a camel, the ferocity of a lion, and the vigor and hope of a child. The harsh living environment has created their national characteristics that are a blend of ice and fire. This also means that the evil spirit has regained its freedom and obtained the body of a supernatural being. Evil spirits, drowned spirits. Almost wherever there is water, there are legends of drowning. They can transform into treasure chests, gold and silver, beautiful women, or even just a juicy little green vegetable to attract passers-by to go into the water. Once you fall into its trap, you will drown miserably in the water. Taboo: restrain your greed. As long as you don't touch water, it won't be able to cause any harm to you. Apparently, the privateers that returned safely did not waste even a quarter of an hour before releasing all the weird things they had successfully captured. On the other side of the island, a blind box opened by a shepherd was equally deadly. Just as he greedily picked up the 2 silver coins, the corpse suddenly split in the middle, and the elastic human skin suddenly wrapped him up. It turned into a wriggling translucent ball of flesh. Even though the shepherd struggled hard, he could not tear through that thin membrane. When everything calmed down, a figure stood up from the ground again. There was only the shepherd with a wooden face, and the human skin was nowhere to be found. Weird thief. The existence is formed by the combination of the soul of the dead who died from dragging the keel and a sea slug called leaf sheep. Leaf sheep has a stealing physique that can obtain the chlorophyll of seaweed by eating it, and perform photosynthesis in the body of an animal. To put it simply, as long as I eat you, I can become you and have your abilities forever, and I will become whatever I eat. Its ability is somewhat similar to that of a gourmet's food supplement, but it is much more powerful and unreasonable. At the same time, it always exudes the scent of creatures at the bottom of the food chain, making people want to eat it when they see it. Eating it is also the beginning of being eaten. Taboo: please wear the strongest toxic warning color in nature, such as red, orange, yellow, black, or a mixture of these colors, so that it will think you cannot eat it. Grotesque eater thief took 2 steps and seemed to be not used to it. He swallowed a goat that was following him and turned into the appearance of a goat. Then he staggered towards the port city. I believe no pirate ship would refuse to have such a fat goat on board, in every sense of the word. At the same time, some pioneers have already entered the city. In a dark alley, a mass of black gelatinous shadow with mouths all over its body, which was the only organ it had, was flowing on the ground like asphalt. Sometimes the sound of a child crying comes out of his mouth, and sometimes the cry for help from a woman or an old man. I am so hungry. Help me, help me. But once someone steps into its shadow, they will be swallowed up, leaving only a mouth growing on its body. Weird Thousand Ma Shadow. Although it does not know what it says, it can instinctively imitate various human calls for help. The more mouths you have on your body, the more powerful you are. Taboo: the hunting method is ambush, and it rarely takes the initiative to attack. When encountering such a weird situation, never believe your ears. Light is repulsive to it, and fire is deadly to it. Except for the human-faced whale louse which was just annihilated by the golden deer, and the ripper who only had 1 silver coin. There are a total of 13 of these evil freaks and evil spirits wandering throughout Anchor Bay. Most of them can kill people without being noticed, and are far more dangerous than extraordinary beings who can be judged by common sense. Even if it is a second-level professional transcendent, if he accidentally runs into their killing rules without knowing the details, he may capsize in the gutter. More importantly, all the octopus silver coins pointed to that highly mysterious existence, making all prophecies below the high sequence invalid. The law enforcement team soon realized that something was wrong, but they had no idea where to put their strength. Chaos. On the surface, Anchor Bay was still peaceful and prosperous. But in every corner of the city, Taiwanese and drunken Taiwanese pirates disappear quietly every moment. The influx of a large number of pirates had already overwhelmed the public security system, and these evil spirits and monsters became the last straw that broke the camel's back. The top leaders of Taiwan no longer have the time to cause trouble for those potential destabilizing factors. The gunpowder artist wearing a mask and a cape stands on the lighthouse at the harbor. Listening to the reports coming from Whalebone Amulet Whale Song, the expression under the mask became extremely ugly. Divination is no longer effective, tracking is no longer effective, and spiritual communication is no longer effective. The large number of assassins that have emerged only attack mortals and never attack extraordinary people. The success rate of the crime was 100%, there were no survivors and no witnesses. It is suspected to be the product of some highly mysterious ritual. He gritted his teeth, even retracted the living bomb that was about to be sent to the Privateering Alliance anchorage, and leaped into the city. Behind her, on the deck of the Nemesis, which was like a small fortress, Redbeard gently shook a glass of red wine, reflecting the entire Anchor Bay and the hideous smile on his face. The wine slowly swirled, as dazzling as blood. The elements of Lancaster and the elements of Bay people are all present. As long as we can successfully close the net this time, not only the diehards in Anchor Bay, but even the son of the devil who obviously has very bad luck and chooses to hide here will have no chance of escaping. And I, Edward the Redbeard, will eventually be crowned king on this sea. Chapter 67. I'll just report it. The body is as light as a swallow. The gunpowder artist recited the inscription of cutting, and the wonderful boots wings of the petrel on his feet grew 2 pairs of small wings. Let her move flexibly through the streets and alleys of the city like a seagull, quickly patrolling every crime scene reported by the sheriffs. But wherever she passed, those evil things disappeared immediately as if they had encountered the shadow of a campfire. Unless they showed up on their own initiative, she, a third-rank craftsman, would be helpless against those things. For a moment, she almost felt the same annoyance and powerlessness that Byron felt when he lost all his loved ones. If Uncle Dennis, who was already in poor health, had not suddenly passed away 10 days ago, this election would not have been so passive. According to the principle that whoever benefits is the mastermind. Redbeard, the most popular and hidden deputy speaker, is the most suspicious. The more the gunpowder artist thought about it, the more he felt that all the accusations seemed to be directed at the number 2 man in the captain's council. The death of my own elder is also shrouded in doubts. The current commander-in-chief is called Dennis, a third-level Bay citizen berserker of the Lighthouse sequence. He inherited the title of Children's Guardian, which has been passed down from generation to generation among the people of the Bay. No one can tell how long this title has existed, but it is known that it originated from a figure in ancient legend. He got his name because he refused to impale children on his spear and disembowel them during his raids. The reason for the birth of this title can only be described as shocking to modern people. However, when the legendary degree exceeds 20, the additional abilities that emerge are extremely powerful. It's called Unbreakable Body: when protecting children and the younger generations of the clan, you will receive the blessings of the previous generations of child guardians, and your strength, endurance, and defense will be greatly improved. And you will never be knocked down by the enemy. Even if one unfortunately dies in battle, the body will continue to fight until it is shattered and can no longer stand up. As long as he doesn't fall down, he can continue to vent his terrifying destructive power. It goes well with the Berserker class. Before the North Sea pirate king Whale Hunter left Anchor Bay, he entrusted Anchor Bay and his daughter Violet to his care. Although he is already very old, and suffering from the pain caused by long-term overdraft of the Berserker profession, he is more than capable of protecting a younger generation. But 10 days ago, the condition of this extraordinary pillar of the family unexpectedly worsened and he passed away suddenly. Violet has no idea what happened to Dennis the child guardian. What they didn't know was that the day he passed away, October 10th, was actually the same day that Byron broke through Storm Night. Byron witnessed with his own eyes the entire process of a lighthouse next to him, which symbolized another lighthouse sequence extraordinary being suddenly dragged into the Sea of Source. It is now November 1471, 11 in the Silver Era. Unless they braved the rough seas and crossed the North Sea, the pirates meeting in Anchor Bay would be trapped here for the next 2 to 3 months. We can't flee, and we can't ask for help. If we can't solve this problem, Anchor Bay will probably become a huge slaughterhouse. Before she knew it, Violet had reached Sheriff Faber's precinct again and saw that the old man had obviously been waiting for a long time and was pacing back and forth anxiously. As soon as the sheriff saw the gunpowder artist, he immediately came forward and handed him a letter without paying attention to etiquette. "Princess, someone quietly put a letter of complaint in my pocket and asked me to deliver it to the top leaders of the Wanman community. I think you should take a look at it." Report letter. After checking the letter to see if there was anything wrong with it, Violet unfolded it with some confusion. This is Hattings? White Rose. Black Mass. Her pupils suddenly shrank, and the contents of the letter stirred up a storm in her heart. As mentioned in detail above, the real enemy to be faced at Anchor Bay is not Redbeard. But it was the White Rose York family standing behind him. It also explains the plans of Redbeard and the privateering alliance, the role of the octopus silver coins, the Black Mass blood sacrifice ceremony, speculation about natural disasters, etc. It also reveals the dangerous situation that the people of Shamao Bay and Baidi Bay will soon face. The envelope even contains 2 octopus silver coins that allow people to join the ceremony. The final signature, in addition to an emergency contact number, was just one, "Good citizen of Anchor Bay." Is this news true or false? Violet was agitated, but she was only a third-level craftsman and had not mastered the advanced prophecy technique. But judging the authenticity of the information in a letter is absolutely no problem. She took out a dice from a cowhide waist bag on her waist that looked ordinary but was actually a Space Wonder traveler's bag. There are many types of dice in the world, generally divided into regular tetrahedron, regular hexahedron, regular octahedron, regular dodecahedron, and regular icosahedron. But this dice is different. It is the smallest and most magical 2-sided dice. There are only 2 possible outcomes after throwing the dice. Well, strange item, 2-sided dice is actually just a coin. On one side was written Runuan's yes and on the other side was written no. Is the information in this letter true? After Violet asked the question, she threw a 2-sided dice. The dice landed with the yes side facing up. The information is true. When he wanted to divine the identity of the writer of the letter, even if he just wanted to know whether the other person was a man or a woman, the coin stood upright on the ground. Divination failed. Seeing this situation, Violet hesitated for a moment before making up her mind. Absorbing factors? Aggregation effect? The target is the entire Bay ethnic group. She dripped a drop of her blood on each of the 2 silver coins and put them in her pocket. It means that she chose to actively join the Black Mass ceremony. This move is crazy, but efficient enough. When the crisis came, she, as a Taiwanese princess, was the first to bear the brunt. If the mountain doesn't come to me now, I will go to the mountain. Those evil spirits and monsters will sooner or later come to her on their own initiative in order to get the silver coins. Moreover, Violet's method of breaking the impasse coincides with Byron's. Who says that the group elements of ritual positioning can only come from us, the Taiwanese people? If we want to play, let's play big, and we can't leave out any of our good friends. His smile turned slightly cold, and as he shook his cloak, his whole body slowly melted in the night wind. Byron and his crew once again quietly returned to Anchor Bay, just like a group of new pirates. They had nothing to do with the former man-eating shark from beginning to end. Gus had already heard that Harvey the Jackal, the first mate of the Nemesis, was recruiting free pirates. Byron immediately sent Brooke as the first mate of the Golden Hind to represent the entire ship under Redbeard's command. After he finished writing the letter of complaint, he asked Gus, the Phantom Blade, to secretly deliver it to the sheriff. He changed his clothes and slipped off the Golden Deer alone. Let me face such a dangerous situation alone, what a joke. I'll just report it. As for the silver coin that was left behind, he also dripped a drop of blood on it and put it into his pocket. As a certified serious threat, it has become his instinct to join in if he can't beat them. Why did he keep one when he gave two to others? Of course, it is because I am the pioneer also requires strategy. Taiwanese people are relatively large, so they naturally have to be in the front. However, in the eyes of others, they are just two complete lunatics. What Byron hated most were those plots about the Riddler in stories where both parties were entangled in misunderstandings and the Riddler refused to tell the truth even if beaten to death. Make more friends and fewer enemies, so that when something happens, we can face it together. Otherwise, the first one to die will be the lone hero. I have the intelligence and you have the fists. If we work together, both of us will benefit. Why not do it? Most of the fog of war has been cleared, allowing the Taiwanese people to know where the enemy is, what plans and cards the enemy has, so that they can counterattack more effectively. A lean camel is bigger than a horse. The strength of the Bay people is definitely not weak as they made the York family go to so much trouble. There cannot be no considerable number of allies among those free pirates. Maybe he is powerless in front of that unknown entity like Lancaster, but he will have no problem dealing with regular enemies. As for Byron himself, cognitive correction was quietly activated, and he swaggered onto Redbeard's nemesis. He will eventually become the man standing behind the big boss. Chapter 68. Loyalty is not absolute, it is absolutely disloyal. Privateering Alliance Anchorage. The night is dark, and the long night that lasts up to 19 hours every day is itself a breeding ground for chaos. This is especially true for pirates, an already restless group. Snapped, snapped, snapped. Mercy, mercy. Mr. Bill, we won't dare to do it again. Stop beating us, sir. It's because the captain forbade us to go ashore. We heard the sound of dice rolling in the casino, and we couldn't control our gambling addiction. On the deck of the Nemesis, 4 sailors were tied to ropes with their upper bodies naked, swaying in the biting cold wind. A tall and cold-tempered pirate officer was beating them with a 9-tailed cat, leaving them covered in blood and screaming in agony. It was Bill, the executioner who served as the squadron commander and led the team to perform the Black Mass ceremony yesterday. He was already in a bad mood because he had lost a ship, the Rainbow, and 2 precious octopus silver coins during the mission. Hearing that the 4 pirates who had run into the gun barrels not only refused to admit their mistakes but also dared to defend themselves, he increased the force of wielding the whip in his hand. Beating and scolding. You bastards, you still dare to quibble? Am I punishing you because of gambling? The 5th commandment of the 10 pirate commandments of the Nemesis, anyone who strikes another on board shall be punished by the law of Moses, 40 lashes. Precept 6, those who break weapons and hold candles without lampshades shall be punished as above. The 4 of you lit candles and gathered to gamble, but you didn't put lampshades on the candles. The one who lost money cheated and caused a fight. And you still dare to say that you shouldn't be punished. A candle without a lampshade could potentially catch fire on a wooden sailboat, and many pirate ships prohibited women from boarding and gambling in order to prevent internal strife. If an accident like the camp roar occurred on the ship, they would have nowhere to run. These people were not wrongly punished. Loyalty is not absolute, it is absolutely disloyal. I, Executioner Bill, will never tolerate any harm to the Nemesis or to the interests of Captain Redbeard. The 9-tailed cat whipped 9 people with one whip, and after dozens of whips, all 4 crew members almost fainted. The other pirates watching on the ship felt sympathetic and secretly expressed dissatisfaction when they looked at Bill, who was in charge of the execution. Some even whispered, "What are you so proud of? Damn Navy, if you have the guts, why don't you just stop being a pirate? You've brought the same tactics you used on a warship onto a pirate ship." "That's right. 40 lashes is the rule, and a lighter one is a favor. If you don't know, you might think this Marine has some deep hatred against us brothers." As a first-level extraordinary person at the servant level, Bill naturally has sharp ears and eyes. Hearing those sarcastic insults, the muscles on his cheeks twitched slightly, but he pretended not to hear them and continued the execution. What those pirates said was not wrong, he was indeed a navy, but the word former should be added. As we all know, the living conditions of lower-level sailors are extremely poor. Their eating, drinking, hygiene, and rest are not even as good as those of prisoners in land prisons. But what many people don't know is that compared with merchant sailors, the lives of sailors in various countries' navies are actually more miserable. Not only would they continue to be involved in various dangerous wars, but their pay was extremely low, usually only half of what merchant sailors received, and was often in arrears with the military. The punishments in the navy were particularly horrific. Even a cruel person like Blood-Eyes Salmon, who deliberately set traps to kill crew members in the Pirates' 10 Commandments, would not abuse crew members in normal times. But this situation is common on warships. Naval officers treated lower-level sailors extremely harshly, often whipping sailors to death or maiming them for minor mistakes. The navies of various countries are also the only group that can legally and openly increase general penalties to the death penalty, and it is common for those who disobey the captain to be shot. Therefore, even those maritime powers with frequent maritime activities cannot ensure that their naval sailors are fully staffed at all times. Even the incidence of mental illness or psychosis among naval sailors is so high that they have to be equipped with chaplains to provide counseling. What's even more bizarre is, compared with merchant ships and navies, pirate ships that abide by the pirate code are fair and democratic to their crew members, treating them as the masters of the ship. Pirates also became the salvation of many low-level sailors. It was not uncommon for navy and merchant sailors to find the right opportunity to escape to pirate ships. Although it sounds incredible and contrary to common sense, this is the reality on the ocean. Byron used psychological disguise to disguise himself as an ordinary pirate, and hid in the crowd to watch the show. Naturally, he also heard the sailors' discussions. At first glance, echoes of history discovered that the people speaking were all former Navy soldiers. Nodded secretly. If Bill was just an ordinary former Navy soldier, he wouldn't have caused so much hostility from the crew. Unfortunately, he was once a naval officer who played the role of an abuser, and this label cannot be washed away. Of course, the Navy's dark history can never be washed away. As a former quasi-senior, he also knew that under the wartime conditions in Hastings, evading naval service would result in a fine of 10 gold pounds, which was the income of an ordinary person without food or drink for a year. Every time this happens, the gentlemen of the Navy Department's military committee will see their value skyrocket. It's obvious where the money comes from. Anyway, they never thought of improving the treatment of sailors. And in the information Byron collected in advance through the know-it-all, Bill was not only an officer, but also an executioner of the Inquisition, with the blood of countless pirates and naval soldiers on his hands. After being defeated and captured in a battle, he joined the army of Edward Redbeard and became more loyal than most pirates, like a fanatical convert. He also gained Redbeard's trust at the first opportunity and continued to appoint him as the executioner on the Vengeance. He always keeps a signature slogan in mind. If loyalty is not absolute, then it is absolutely disloyal. He strictly and meticulously implemented the 10 pirate commandments formulated by Redbeard, and never showed any mercy. It didn't take long for him to turn himself into a lone minister. Ordinary pirates may not know why this strange combination has such a tacit understanding. But Byron knew the inside story very well. For example, in the extraordinary system of the law, if Redbeard is responsible for shouting open court, then Bill is responsible for shouting mighty. Only if Redbeard becomes the overseer of the captain's council, or even uses this as a springboard to become the new pirate king of the North Sea, will the latter have greater power to carry out executions everywhere. He even attached himself to the pirate king and became a mid-sequence transcendent. For him, it is not just the vested interests, but even the fundamental path of transcendence is forcibly bound. Bill, the executioner, must be one of the people in the Privateer Alliance who most sincerely hopes that Redbeard can succeed in his rise to power. A pirate who aspires to become a pirate warlord or even a pirate king also needs a tool like this who is not afraid of offending anyone and can only execute his will perfectly. The two of them really went in both directions. There is absolutely nothing wrong with labeling him as the captain's confidant. It is not surprising at all that such a confidant with extremely simple interpersonal relationships would be targeted by the know-it-alls Franklin and Byron. A full half-hour later. After beating the four men with 40 lashes without any discount, Executioner Bill, who felt that his spirituality had grown a little, said coldly, "Go away. If you do it again next time, you won't be so lucky." He turned around, walked down the gangway and boarded another pirate ship under his command. The other pirates dispersed one after another, and no one greeted the executioner from beginning to end. Some people even made up their minds to report him to the captain. Even if it was of no use, it would at least disgust this guy. Executioner Bill walked into his own independent cabin with a stern face. Just after closing the door, I turned around and was surprised to find a stranger sitting behind my desk, flipping through the logbook I had written with great interest. There was also a whalebone amulet silence placed neatly on the corner of the table. By was immediately shocked and angry, and shouted, "Who let you in? Sinner, kneel down." Chapter 69, Confidant Bill, Big Worry Byron. His shouting was blocked by whalebone amulet silence. There was a strong, oppressive aura overflowing from his eyes, condensing into a golden emblem in the spiritual realm. A golden lion wearing a crown holds a pure golden scale in his arms. This is not a second-level ability, but the most important passive ability of the executioner at the first-level attendant stage, Majesty of Law. It is also called the Aura of Majesty. When the executioner looks directly into the enemy's eyes, he will automatically release a trace of pressure from the law, forcing the opponent to surrender without a fight. It is very effective against weak-willed enemies. As long as the opponent is distracted, the executioner can chop off his head with one blow. The opponent may not be able to react until the head falls to the ground. Unfortunately, the series of abilities rooted in Hastings' iron law of royal power are useless to Byron. Storm Signet Ring Effect. Born noble, the king cannot be peeped. If one has the right to inherit the throne, he or she will automatically obtain legal authority second only to the king. Except for the king, no other lawyer, prison magistrate, or knight of punishment may be convicted. Chapter 26. According to the law of succession, as long as Byron was alive, he would always retain the right of succession and could threaten the rule of the White Rose York family. Bill's anchor anchored both the Magna Carta of Hastings and the pirates' 10 Commandments of the Nemesis. But at this stage, Redbeard's power is still too small to be compared with Hastings, and the anchoring subject is naturally the laws of the kingdom. Since even the strongest lawmaster in the Inquisition sequence cannot break through the defense of the Storm Ring, how can a small executioner be more powerful? The so-called Majesty of the Law was like a wave hitting a reef when it hit Byron, and was immediately shattered into pieces. Well! Bill groaned suddenly, and blood flowed from the corners of his eyes and mouth. Just when he was dizzy due to the backlash of his ability. "Call out!" Byron had already jumped up and rushed in front of him with a mountain goat step. He pressed his face with his left hand, and the dagger in his right hand turned into a cold light, sweeping across his neck like lightning. The bloody holy grail in the palm of his hand instantly lit up. From the outside, only a faint red light could be seen through the crack in the door, which disappeared in an instant and no one noticed anything unusual. Byron moved quickly and mixed a cup of blood brew golden fantasy on the spot. Method: fill a shaker cup 8% full of ice cubes, pour in the ingredients, shake until frosted on the outside, and pour into the cup. With the addition of an extra drop of Bill's blood, the originally light golden color of the wine instantly turned into blood red, and even emitted a hazy icy mist. Byron picked it up and drank it all. The brain immediately began to search with the messy memories of Executioner Bill, only the most impressive parts of them. There are things you wanted when you were young but couldn't get, there are deep-rooted habits and habits, there are relationships that you value most, there is a prostitute that you can't stop wanting. There are extraordinary knowledge and complex legal knowledge that one must rely on to survive, there are also secrets that one must take with him into the coffin until death. Byron got all A's in law, and his understanding of the laws of Hastings and even other countries was far better than his. The focus is on browsing his pitiful and almost non-existent interpersonal relationships, as well as the bits and pieces of interactions with Redbeard in his memory. Psychological disguise can turn Byron into another person, but it cannot change the past of the new identity. The previous chef's identity was already blank, and if he didn't pay attention to the details this time, people would find out the flaws in a minute. Soon, Byron was a completely changed person from the inside out. No matter her appearance or temperament, there is no trace of her original appearance anymore. Looking at myself in the mirror, I recited the sequence motto of the Inquisition sequence. Ignorance of the law does not exempt you from responsibility. There is also a golden lion holding a scale, appearing above his head. Cognitive correction. It is easy to make others see a false impression. Then, by activating a trace of the power of law in the storm seal ring, it immediately became both physical and spiritual, and looked more real than the real thing. Whether as a sailor or as a legal worker in Hastings, Byron is more like the executioner than this one, and he doesn't need to act at all. With a wave of his hand, the golden emblem disappeared, and he showed a murderous cold smile to the mirror. If loyalty is not absolute, then it is absolutely disloyal. You all must die. After saying this, he took out from his pocket the whalebone amulet moss-covered tombstone that imprisoned the know-it-all Franklin Joshua. Mr. Franklin, I am very satisfied with the candidate you recommended. But the status of this confidant was somewhat different from what I had expected. Do you know that Captain Redbeard's special hobby can make this identity go further in a short time? True to his nickname, the know-it-all replied without hesitation in a cold voice. I heard that the first mate Badger Harvey has been busy recruiting free pirates and spending money like water. Buying off other congressmen's support was almost emptying the wealth accumulated by the goddess of vengeance. If you can give a large sum of money, Mr. Redbeard will be very happy. What know-it-all said was indeed correct. Before setting off, Byron arranged for Brooke and Gus to join the privateering alliance as free pirates. But when Byron heard the word money, he couldn't help but feel a little overwhelmed. Listening to your words is like listening to a speech. If someone gave me a large sum of money, I would be happy too. Then, based on the principle of reciprocity, know-it-all also coldly asked the questions that he was concerned about. Then it's my turn. Do you like pure and lovely beautiful girls, charming and passionate ladies, or something else? Hearing this question, Byron's face darkened again. I refuse to answer. Effects of Moss Tombstone. If you answer, it may spread your secrets to people around you through spiritual broadcasting or dreaming. If you cannot answer, you will be cursed with a first-level instant death curse. If you fail to answer, you will die on the spot. You can imagine what it would be like if you revealed your true hobbies. It will eventually evolve into pass it on. The captain likes young and beautiful girls because they are light and soft. Have you heard? The captain will take anything, as long as they are light and soft. By then, all your wisdom and talent will be lost, which will be more painful than death. At the same time, the storm seal ring flashed with lightning, and he easily resisted the instant death curse from this quasi-cursed object. The light on the whalebone amulet dimmed a little. Without the replenishment of his soul, Franklin would probably disappear completely in no time. It's not a pity for Byron. If this guy didn't know all the secrets of the privateering alliance, the knowledge of a first-level attendant would be worse than his own ship's log. After putting the amulet away, he was troubled about how to please Redbeard. Make money? If I can make a lot of money, why would I need to try to please Redbeard? By then, even if I throw the deposit slip directly in his face, he will have to smile and give me an official certification as the butler of the vengeance. But when he turned his head, he happened to see the navigation log and a crudely drawn nautical chart on the desk of Executioner Bill. Finally got an idea. He quickly picked up the tools on the table and started working on the drawing. He was busy until the early hours of the next morning without closing his eyes. Boom, 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 at about 7 o'clock in the morning, there was a knock on his door, and a sailor shouted outside. Mr. Bill, the captain has something to ask all officers to go to the combat command room of the Nemesis. The door was pushed open again. Executioner Bill walked out with a treasure map in his hand, looking very proud. Now if anyone dares to say that I'm not a confidant, Redbeard will have to slap him in the face for me. Chapter 70. Treasure Map, Treasure Island. When Byron walked into the combat command room, the pirate officers of the Nemesis and the captains of Redbeard's direct pirate fleet were all there. Apparently, Bill wasn't very popular on the ship, so the sailor in charge of delivering the message was the last one to notify him. Someone raised his eyelids and said sarcastically, "Isn't Mr. Executioner the most disciplined person who always mentions the 10 Commandments? How come you are often late?" In Bill's usual style, Byron ignored the intelligence that showed the captain's name was Hayden. After taking off his hat to Captain Edward Redbeard, he sat in the third seat to his right. The officers' seating arrangement on the Venemy is from left to right, and the closer they are to Redbeard, the higher their status. 7531-246 Executioner Bill's previous position was probably 7th in this pirate team. They are considered to be the core circle, but they are not Redbeard's indispensable right-hand men. At this time, Redbeard, who was sitting in the main seat, seemed to have not heard the disagreement among his subordinates at all. While leisurely eating breakfast, he flipped through the Lighthouse Weekly, which had been carefully ironed by the servants so that there was no ink on his hands. The new King Edward IV of Hattings was recognized by the Magna Carta and the Church, was crowned at Oasis Palace, and gave a speech to the House of Lords. The Banton Islands have encountered several strong storms. A large number of merchant ships have missed the window of opportunity and are stranded there this winter and unable to return. The prices of spices, sugar, and furs from mainland countries will continue to rise. In the Kingdom of Castile, which has the strongest overseas shipping routes, a colony was attacked by indigenous supernatural beings, causing heavy casualties. The governor urgently requested assistance from the nearby garrison. The Rhine Alliance discovered a huge volcanic silver mine somewhere in the Sapphire Sea south of Banton. Naturalists have inferred that the reserves are astonishing. When Redbeard saw the last piece of news, he waved the newspaper to everyone and sighed unintentionally, tisk tisk, it would be great if we, the Nemesis, were the discoverer of this large silver mine. Even if we cannot consume it ourselves, we can at least get a 10% to 20% long-term profit by reselling it to some big power. Money will no longer be a problem for us. Harvey, the first mate who was already worried about the budget, also echoed. Indeed, Sir Captain, after you issued the order to recruit free pirates. Last night, another ship, the Golden Deer and the White Sand, took the initiative to join us. Although they were all unknown small pirates, the £100 each of them spent was real money. We have been spending money like water recently, and we don't have much money left to prepare for the event. In the past half-month, they have been buying up goods and recruiting people to expand their strength in Anchor Bay, they have accepted all comers and bribed various free pirates, and they have been secretly communicating with congressmen. The crew of the privateering alliance were strictly prohibited from going ashore, which made the atmosphere on the ship increasingly tense. Redbeard knew that the loyal executioner Bill was using him as a target to attract fire. If the money is available, none of these things will be a problem. But in order to accomplish that earth-shattering event, they arrived at Anchor Bay a month in advance, and due to lack of money, they had no chance to plunder. The new lord, the House of York, has already supported more than 100 privateering ships, so it is even more impossible to give them more money. Even if White Rose promised to send the natural disaster that could harvest everything, there will definitely be a fierce fleet-level battle. The free pirates are a group of money-hungry villains. The resettlement fee is just a deposit. The subsequent war funds must be in place before they are willing to take action. Do we still need to borrow money from those cannibalistic remit people? Even though this great pirate killed people without blinking an eye, he was somewhat afraid of talking about this business that the remit people were best at. War has always been one of the most expensive activities, otherwise many kings would not have to borrow usury when fighting. There are many people who don't even want to pay back the money and even want to kill their creditors. Redbeard pinched his forehead and glanced at all the pirate officers present from left to right, but no one dared to look him in the eye. These old sea dogs could more or less see that the captain was taking the opportunity to join the first mate in crying poor. But whether they were rich or poor, they were reluctant to donate to the captain's cause. Donate money to pay your own salary? This matter of yours is really difficult to deal with. In the midst of this deep silence that gradually embarrassed Redbeard, someone suddenly spoke up. Captain, I have an idea. Please take a look at this. The person who spoke was Executioner Bill, who was not very noticeable among the group of pirate officers. Listen to others' advice and eat a full meal. After receiving the intelligence tip from the know-it-all, the things Byron spent a night preparing in advance came in handy. At Redbeard's signal, he stood up and walked forward, placing the treasure map that still smelled of fresh ink in front of him. The above is marked with rhombus lines, compass dials, wind roses and scales in a delicate way that is not comparable to the common ones. It's almost like hand drawing a whole new nautical chart. This is. When people who live on land all year round want to go to an unfamiliar place, the first thing they look for is a conspicuous landmark, and then describe the direction based on the landmark as the origin. But there is no such thing on the ocean where there is water everywhere. Therefore, when an experienced old captain looks at a nautical chart, he will not look at any conspicuous landmarks on the overly abstract nautical chart. Instead, we use these route elements on the nautical chart to form an accurate route in our minds. Rum lines are used in conjunction with a compass to plot a navigation route. The wind rose diagram shows the frequency, average wind speed and maximum wind speed of various wind directions, and has various identification types such as year, season, and month. When Redbeard looked through the navigation data and saw the coordinates that the nautical chart ultimately pointed to, he stood up suddenly. He placed his hands on the nautical chart and stared at the destination with wide eyes. That is the legendary Treasure Island. He turned his head in disbelief and looked at the trusted general beside him. Yes, from now on he might deserve this title, as long as he could prove that this thing was not a fake or a doodle. Bill looked righteous. Captain, actually, ever since I got on board, I have been sorting out the logbooks and various nautical charts from my past service in the kingdom. Recently, I have seen you and the first mate busying around for the future of the Nemesis, and I am worried about it. I just want to give my best, think about what you think, and worry about what you worry about. But I am just a servant-level executioner, and my power is really insufficient. So after much thought, I compiled and organized all the valuable drawings I had ever seen. Then I found this nautical chart that I had seen in a confidential document, which should be able to alleviate the pirate group's urgent needs. Seeing the captain's overreaction, the first mate also looked out of curiosity and immediately exclaimed, "Is this the treasure map leading to the legendary Treasure Island?" The pirate officers nearby could no longer sit still and swarmed over, talking among themselves. The legend of Treasure Island has a long history on the sea and is ranked among the top 10 legends. At least 6 out of 10 pirates know its story. That is the treasure place of the legendary pirate Flint, buried with countless gold, silver and various jewels. But the Treasure Island is elusive and can only be found successfully at a specific time and through a series of complex route calculations. The most amazing thing is that every time Treasure Island appears, there are more treasures on the island than the last time, as if the treasures grow on their own. That's right. In the beginning, there were only legends about it, and no one had ever seen its true appearance. It was not until a few years ago when the identities of Flint's wealthy descendants were exposed and their entire family was surrounded and killed that the treasure map of the legendary pirate was scattered. Although it was copied several times later, few people had the chance to climb it, and even fewer returned with treasures. I know why. Because Treasure Island must have a prime number of years interval before it appears in a corner of the ocean. The first time was 2 years, and the second time was 3 years. 57111317. It is said that the current prime number cycle is 11 years, and the next Treasure Island will appear next year. At this time, let alone the Treasure Island itself, just a treasure map would be enough to make countless pirates fight for it. I heard that a copy was sold at an auction house in Florence 2 months ago, but I didn't even dare to look at the number of zeros at the end. A group of pirates pieced together the legend of Treasure Island. The few newbies who had never heard of it all widened their eyes. However, not everyone was dazzled by the treasure map. A pirate suddenly said impossible, even if Bill was lucky enough to see the treasure map in the confidential files of the Kingdom of Hattings. But could he be so kind as to give such wealth that could rival a country to the captain for free? Will you deliver it? Such a straightforward question immediately made everyone silent. Everyone only dared to answer silently in their hearts. Well, no. Chapter 71. I am the pioneer, the boss goes first. Like everyone else, Byron gave the same negative answer, thinking to himself, I'm not his father. If it's really a good thing, can I give it to him? It has been less than 100 years since the age of exploration began, and humanity's understanding of unknown waters is still very limited. Each force controls some secret routes that are unknown to others. Byron's mind was filled with all the precious nautical charts collected by Hastings, and he knew many unknown supply points, ocean routes, pirate ports, hidden mines, secret places, and so on. This precious knowledge, which is at least 10 years ahead of ordinary adventurers, is also his greatest wealth. Now is the time to cash in. As for Treasure Island? Humph, if you live to go there, you must live to come back. Guess why the amount of gold and silver on Treasure Island is increasing. Bang, Redbeard slammed the table and shouted. Shut up, everyone. We'll know if it's true or not once we check it out. Even if he couldn't read minds, he knew what these bastards under him were thinking. He waved his hands, asking everyone to stay away and not get in the way. He moved the whale oil lamp closer, illuminating every detail on the nautical chart. He pressed the black ring on his hand against the lower right corner of the nautical chart. He read out the inscription of judgment, fair and just. Wonderful item mantra ring : the favorite of the gold UN sequence extraordinaries, it can make loopholes and traps in business agreements nowhere to escape. Just by touching the paper document with your ring finger, you can confirm whether it is real or fake. In formal official transactions, a lawyer from the tribunal sequence is usually invited to act as a notary. The power of silver law can be directly mobilized to ensure the fairness of the contract. In the dark and gray areas where pirates and criminals roam, there are no such conditions, so rare items like the Ring of Truth are naturally very popular. Just like the two-sided dice in the hands of the gunpowder artist, this kind of thing is not rare in the hands of mid-level pirates. Everyone held their breath, opened their spiritual vision, and watched the force of justice from the silver law roaring in. Where the ring touched, a black O mark like a branding iron was left. Represents truth and correctness. It's O, not X. This treasure map is actually real. The pirate officers at the scene were filled with disbelief and excitement. The smile on Redbeard's face could no longer be suppressed. He patted Byron's shoulder excitedly and praised him repeatedly. "Mr. Bill, you did a great job. You are indeed a firm practitioner of loyalty is not absolute, it is absolutely not loyal. When I become the pirate warlord of the North Sea, you will be my chief law enforcement officer. This position within the legal system is fully sufficient for you to advance to the second-level professional level, or even touch the threshold of the middle sequence. Redbeard and Salmon have different styles, and the big pirate's style is obviously much bigger than that of the small pirates." Realizing that one pie was not enough for this achievement, he added, "The two ships that just joined the group last night, the Golden Deer and the White Sand, no, all 6 free pirate ships that joined yesterday, their wartime dispatch and command rights all belong to you. I promise you that in the future, wherever my pirate flag is raised, your law enforcement authority will be extended there. Mr. Bill, keep up the good work. I, Redbeard, will never treat my loyal and devoted confidant badly." No wonder Redbeard is so happy. Even though the treasures on Treasure Island cannot be converted into cash for the time being, it has tempting wealth, a high level of legend, and timeliness that is within reach. There is also an excellent story behind it. As long as you take this nautical chart to a bank as collateral, or promise to share the secret with other big pirates, you can cash in a large sum of money in a short period of time. But he changed his mind and immediately rejected the idea. No, 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 I must keep this good thing for myself, and no one else can snatch the treasure from me. Even the new lord, the York family, can't do that, even if I have to mortgage the property I bought in the capital of Hastings, or even my nemesis, I cannot let this treasure out. Huo Ran turned his head and looked at the other pirates in the command room. The mid-sequence transcendence aura was as rampant as an octopus, making it difficult for everyone to breathe. This matter ends here, I don't want anyone to leak it, understand? Look at yourselves and then look at others. If you could all share my worries like Mr. Bill, the Nemesis would have long been the Pirate King group. Yes, Captain. They all knew how powerful it was and responded in unison. But when he looked at Byron, his eyes were immediately filled with naked envy and jealousy. The Navy has once again come to the fore. Why don't I know navigation knowledge and can't draw a nautical chart? Why can't I get a treasure map like this? No one doubted his drawing ability. You have to know that to be a successful pirate captain, it is not as simple as picking up a scimitar and killing people and looting. They also had to develop the skills of a navigator, open up routes, find water sources, and avoid shipwrecks. Many pirates never learn these skills in their lifetime. On warships, chart making and daily navigation log recording are compulsory courses for officers. In order to ensure its control over each warship, the Navy Department requires the lieutenants assisting the captain on board to keep independent logbooks. All major and minor events that occurred on the ship had to be based on the independent navigation log kept by officers at various posts. To a certain extent, they can even check and balance the captain. But since this thing is for people to see, whether they wrote down their true thoughts and whether they are decent people is a matter of opinion. Byron didn't care about this. He just needed a legitimate reason to take out the nautical chart. And he would give the good things to Redbeard, which is in line with his absolute loyalty character. The price he paid was that he was completely labeled a diehard by other pirates. It's the kind of person who, when his colleagues are talking bad about the captain, they absolutely cannot do it in front of him. Humph, what a lackey! No one knew that the more they cursed the dogleg, the happier the King of Rolls Byron would be. Entry effect: the better your abilities and the more outstanding your achievements, the more you will be valued and recognized by your superiors, and the closer you will be to the role of confidant in the eyes of others. The more you backstab a superior, the stronger the ability bonus you gain. Moreover, they are the underdogs who are against their superiors and are not subject to punishment by the laws within the system. Even if there is no backstabbing, your superior will be very loyal and passively protect your confidant from disasters, gradually causing bad luck and frequent accidents. Byron and the gunpowder artist's plan was simple. It is to expand the scope of sacrifice of Black Mass and drag in the ignorant free pirates and the complacent privateering alliance. Byron was even more ruthless. Not only did he want to drag down the privateering alliance, he also wanted to drag Edward Redbeard down with him to take the blame. I am the pioneer, the boss charges first. However, when you think about having an immortal boss to protect you from disasters, why do you feel so good for some reason? Isn't it more durable than the ordinary boss? The poisonous water in Byron's stomach was gurgling up and down, but his mouth seemed to be covered with honey. Captain, I just did something insignificant. For the sake of the big picture, what do the gains and losses of personal interests matter? A qualified subordinate should not always think about what he can get from the pirate group, but should first think about what he can bring to the pirate group. Not to mention a mere treasure map, even if you donate all your wealth, I, Bill, will never frown. This impassioned remark made the pirate officers look ashen, but Redbeard's face was flushed. I feel that this confidant is really pleasing to the eye. Very good. Then Redbeard waved his hand and mentioned another theme of this meeting besides raising money. I have received a communication from my collaborators this morning that the Grand Fleet has already sailed from Hattings, and everyone else has made preparations in advance. First Mate, and Mr. Bill, you two will lead the team and attend the Captain's Council with me today. It is time to let those conservative Taiwanese know who will be the future masters of this land. As you command, Captain. Byron's lowered eyes flashed. It's about to begin. Chapter 72. Dance of Death, Senators Attack. In the northernmost port of Bristol in the Hastings Channel Islands, countless blood crosses of the kingdom, fleet flags, noble flags, and captains' long gilded flags fluttered in the wind. Weigh anchor! Weigh anchor! Destination due north, all fleets are heading to starboard, sailing close to the wind, set sail. The sailors raised flags on the mainmast of the flagship, which was urgently renamed King Edward, and the fleet commander's orders were conveyed to the entire fleet. The officers' shouts came one after another. Commanding the first fleet of the Strait Fleet, which had completed assembly a few days in advance, it sailed out of the anchorage in a mighty manner. With the flagship second-class ship King Edward as the lead ship, they formed a double column and sailed away. When warships are sailing in a group at sea, in order to leave room for maneuvering, the battleships usually maintain a distance of 200 to 400 meters between them, which means 3 ships can reach 1 kilometer. When an entire fleet moves together, one might even feel dizzy as if the fleet is stretching all the way to the horizon. To His Majesty the Great King, we will be invincible under the banner of the White Rose. Cheers to our General! On the flagship King Edward, led by the fleet commander General Norwich York, the officers going to the expedition were dressed in gorgeous clothes and in high spirits. Everyone was holding a wine glass, as if they were not going to an expedition to wipe out the last pirate port in the North Sea, but to attend a grand ball. In fact, in their minds, the ease of this battle was not much different from that of an aristocratic ball. The hundreds of 32-pound guns in the fleet and the heavily sealed object in the bottom hold are their greatest confidence. After the entire fleet left the port, a lighthouse sequence level 3 navigator on the mainmast reported the navigation data to the captain. Current course, 6 compass points west of north, speed 3 knots. Taking into account the future weather changes at sea, it is expected that we will reach the designated sea area in 3 days. The pace of the third quarter does not seem fast. But compared to land transportation, the fact that a warship can carry dozens or hundreds of 2 or 3 ton cannons and travel hundreds of kilometers a day is already terrifying enough. The sailing ship is the undisputed king of war in this era, and no man-made weapon can match it. Of course, the fleet was sailing against the wind. After sailing for a distance, the captain of the flagship in charge of non-wartime command gave the orders, the lead ship should maneuver with the wind, and the fleet should follow and maintain formation. Just think about it. Perhaps an ordinary cruise ship can also change the cross sail to the fore and aft sail to achieve windward maneuvers and thus sail against the wind. But what about those 3-deck, more cumbersome large battleships? A fleet is often composed of a large number of small 2-deck warships and a few 3-deck battleships, and they obviously cannot be abandoned. The solution that the naval officers came up with was to crawl sideways like crabs, using the maximum windward angle and moving around in circles toward the wind. Since the entire fleet had to maintain formation, all ships had to align with the slowest and least maneuverable 3-deck battleships and flotilla flagships. Although this crab sideways crawling posture looks a bit funny, But just imagine that this is a group of war machines, each carrying a massive amount of heavy artillery, approaching you little by little. You will immediately realize that they are not climbing in the wind, but dancing a dance of death on the sea. Even without the trump card sealed in the cabin, this is already a terrifying force that no sea monster dares to provoke. At this time, an inconspicuous red swift passed by carelessly, circled dozens of nautical miles away, and flew north again. Clang, 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 at the same time, the house bell in the center of Anchor Bay rang. That was when the speaker or deputy speaker initiated a motion to urgently convene all the middle-level members of the Anchor Bay for a meeting. In the council hall decorated in a very rough style, 13 pirates, most of whom were unkempt, sat around a huge round table still covered with tree bark. Behind each of them stood a group of ferocious-looking entourage. The sturdy bodies of the desperate criminals were covered with crisscrossing hideous scars, and their eyes reflected bloody and violent flames. Although the scimitar in his hand was polished to a shine, it still couldn't hide the smell of rust that could kill people. If an ordinary person stood here, he would probably be scared half to death on the spot and would tremble even when speaking. The main feature is that it has a strange appearance and is not to be trifled with. Byron also got a ticket to the conference with the help of a treasure map of Treasure Island, and stood obediently behind Edward Redbeard, quietly observing the 13 congressmen in the hall who were divided into 2 factions. He had seen every wanted poster. There were 6 people in total, including Morrison, the butcher bird, and Ferdinand, chapter 38, who had previously recruited people in the square. They all sat on both sides of Redbeard. It was unknown what kind of hidden exchange of interests they had reached, but at this time they no longer concealed their support for Redbeard. The free pirates on the opposite side were a bit lackluster. Although at this time, they still unite around the orthodox Taiwanese forces out of loyalty, they will not be able to play a decisive role in the major changes that will follow. Byron would be satisfied as long as he could contain Redbeard's power. The person sitting among the Bay citizens was not the legendary warlord child guardian Dennis, but a very young girl. There is no such person on the wanted list. He is not famous and does not even have a title. But since the person who can represent the Bay people should be the daughter of the North Sea pirate king whale hunter, the Bay people Princess Violet Herald, Byron had very little information about her. Just as the House of Lords in Haddings has always been controlled by hereditary nobles, she is also a hereditary member of the Captain's Council. There is no need for elections, and you will automatically get a seat if you reach level 3. It is said that she went away to study in the past few years and was not in Anchor Bay for many years. Not many people have seen Violet's true face, and even her specific occupation is unknown. He has silver hair, blue eyes, and a sharp temperament. Even if he doesn't speak, the air seems to be filled with the smell of gunpowder as if a fight is about to break out at any time. Although many pirates in the hall couldn't help but subconsciously look at the Taiwanese princess, it also proved her amazing charm from the side. But Byron's evaluation is average. Too ordinary. Nothing special. There was absolutely no ripple in my heart. At this time, Edward the Redbeard reached out and knocked on the table, looking around at the members of the Bay citizens camp across from him, his voice slightly heavy. Everyone, I believe everyone has received reports of a sharp increase in missing persons cases in the city last night. But why haven't the law enforcement teams and public security offices taken strong countermeasures so far? Anchor Bay is not only the Anchor Bay of the Bay people, but also the Anchor Bay of all the pirates in our North Sea. As the Vice President of the Captain's Council, I cannot watch the situation continue to deteriorate. The culprit, like an innocent person who knew nothing, first explained the current predicament of Anchor Bay. Emphasis is placed on the untraceability of those weird and evil spirits. Then he suddenly attacked Princess Violet of the Bay citizens, who was presiding over the meeting on behalf of the current overlord, and said righteously, "Excuse me, Miss Violet, where is our overseer children's guard Sir Dennis? Why doesn't he come forward and mobilize the iron law of kingship of His Excellency the whaler to defend himself? Forget about the assassination I had on the street, but with the deteriorating security situation, how long can the civilians on the island and our pirate brothers hold out?" There was a commotion in the hall after hearing Redbeard's words. Under the silver law system, as long as one does not usurp the domain of God and challenge the authority of the Church, the pinnacle of all titles is the title of king. As long as they obtain the title of king, whether they are pirate kings or legitimate kings, they can formulate iron laws of royal power that are in their own interests within their own territories or within the scope of their power projection. This is also the fundamental reason for the very popular saying, "The truth is only within the range of your military force or the range of your cannon." Although the North Sea pirate king whale hunter has disappeared, the iron law of kingship he left behind still remains here. The pirate code that governs the North Sea is still in effect. It is rooted in all subjects or citizens who actively or passively accept the rule of the law. Under the legal network personally managed by Wang Hao, any behavior that violates the law can be monitored at any time. The guards can also obtain a substantial bonus from the law in the core territory, gather the strength of the people, and burst out with power beyond their own extraordinary level. In the current situation, as long as the warlord who represents the pirate king's authority stands up and wears the seal ring left by the pirate king, he can mobilize the power of the pirate code to monitor the entire city. In fact, the Black Mass ritual has its own law-breaking effect, and the law cannot track it, but it does not prevent Redbeard from using it as an excuse to attack children's defender. The great pirate's sharp eyes swept across the room, finally settling on Violet's face. Although the words were spoken slowly, they were full of an aggressive and powerful sense of oppression. You keep saying that the overseer is ill. If I am unable to perform my duties in this time of crisis, I, as the Deputy Speaker of the Anchor Bay Captain's Council, have a responsibility to make a motion. Early elections will be held in Anchor Bay in 3 days. Who is in favor and who is against? His first mate Badger Harvey and Byron and other subordinates behind him, including all the entourage behind their congressman, stepped forward collectively upon hearing his words. The suffocating cold and bloody smell pressed down heavily. Chapter 73. Seemingly doomed tragedy. The Taiwanese people are not willing to be outdone. There was a violent spiritual conflict between a dozen mid-sequence pirates and dozens of low-sequence transcendents. The air was filled with crackling sounds like frying beans. Even in modern parliaments, it is common to see people throwing shoes and spitting. So how could a council of captains made up of pirates be respectful and humble? Unfortunately, no matter in terms of numbers or power level, the side supporting the Taiwanese people was undoubtedly at a disadvantage. What? Does our warlord really not care about the people of the Bay and us free pirates who follow him? Miss Violet, are you worthy of the love that the Taiwanese people have for you, the princess? Redbeard firmly occupied the moral high ground and continued to output. Under the repeated questioning, even he himself felt as if he had become the saints enshrined in the church, wielding the stick of morality and hitting whomever he wanted. In fact, Redbeard certainly knew why children's guardian Dennis no longer appeared. Before taking action, he received a guarantee from the Admiralty of Hastings that the old warlord would never become an obstacle to his advancement. Including the unexpected death of the current overseer, a huge pirate gang that was 1/5 overcrowded and put enormous pressure on port security. 30 silver coins and elusive weird, evil spirits, the Strait Fleet is coming from afar, and the killer weapon is sealed in the cabin. All of this was created by him and the York family. Weather, as we enter November, the nights are getting longer and the monsters and evil spirits are becoming more lethal. Geographical advantage, the waves on the North Sea gradually formed an isolated island from which no one could escape. The most critical person and, he was completely certain that the last support of the Taiwanese people children's guards was really gone. Otherwise, there would be no need to wait until now to launch the attack. Even if they still had a breath left, the other party would have to come forward to stabilize people's hearts as soon as the unrest occurred. Now Redbeard is sure of victory and does not want to wait even 10 days. He is eager to reap the fruits of his victory. Seize the supreme power of the pirate code from the hands of the people of the Bay, and dig out the great secret treasure that the people of the Bay have guarded for thousands of years. If it weren't for the fact that it would take 3 days for the Strait Fleet to arrive here, he wouldn't even be able to wait for a quarter of an hour. Even though Violet already knew about Redbeard and the York family's plan, she was still furious when she saw Redbeard's shameless face. You bastard who's crying thief, why didn't I just blow you up earlier? And you accomplices, a bunch of big pirates, don't you realize how long you have been stuck at the 3rd level? They dare not leave the safe haven of the North Sea and venture into the unknown ocean. Their minds are filled with only the struggle for power and profit. After being sold by Redbeard, he is still counting money for him. Sooner or later I will blow you all up. But the current dilemma cannot be solved by violence alone. Or rather, the violence she possesses is not violent enough. Although the people of Baidiwan are the most famous, their population base is there. With the rise of many maritime powers, they have long lost their advantage. On the other hand, Hastings, Iris, Castile, the Netherlands, and the Rhine Confederation, these maritime pioneers, all had a considerable number of pirates. They all have their own interests. This can be seen from the name. The people of the Bay call Violet a princess, but other pirates never acknowledge that this female pirate is the heir to the North Sea Pirate King. Seeing this situation, Byron also shook his head slightly in his heart. Release evil spirits and monsters to disrupt the situation for the people of Taiwan and avoid being punished by the people of Taiwan. Using the excuse that Overseer was the only one who could put an end to the chaos, while collecting blood sacrifice elements, he also facilitated early elections. Redbeard killed 2 birds with 1 stone, which was really a good plan. If it weren't for a troublemaker like me, the Taiwanese people wouldn't have any room to resist, whether intentionally or not. In the voting process, Redbeard had already won by spending money like crazy and promising benefits. Unless you can kill this immortal guy in a fight. But how easy is this? The 2 parties hold completely different cards. What the local Bay residents want is the safety of tens of thousands of compatriots on this island, and that nothing unexpected happens to the great secret treasure they are guarding, and that the ancient prophecy will finally come true. Redbeard only wants control of the Anchor Bay Pirate Code and the maze. Naturally, he is willing to promise all rights, including the wealth in his hands, to other congressmen without any regrets. Seeing that the Taiwanese were indignant but unable to refute, Redbeard was delighted and did not forget to press on. Let's vote. Members who agree with early elections, please raise your hands. Redbeard was the first to raise his right hand. The Pirate Code, which best represents democracy in this era, responded with a roar. The rules are the rules, and the normal electoral process will not be resisted because of a crime that has not yet occurred. After a while, the door of the parliament reopened. A group of congressmen filed out with their respective entourages. Well, everyone, see you in 3 days. Edward the Redbeard, who was leading the way, had a big smile on his face and walked with a breeze. It was obvious that he had gotten what he wanted without any surprise. On the other hand, the Free Pirates, law enforcement teams, navigators and sheriffs on the Taiwan side all had gloomy faces. Unless Child Guardian Dennis can be resurrected, the position of Overseer will most likely change hands in 3 days. The kingdom's navy and the church, who had long disliked them, could march in at any time and destroy everything in Anchor Bay. With the army approaching, it seems that they are doomed to suffer a crushing defeat and face tragedy. The only exception is Violet. A pair of blue eyes stared at the large group of pirates going away, and he was absolutely sure that the good citizen who tipped him off was among them. After receiving the tip from the good citizen of Anchor Bay, I immediately sent out scout birds to the naval port along the coast of Hattings. Before Redbeard convened the meeting to launch the attack, I had already roughly confirmed the time of the arrival of the Channel Fleet and had anticipated his plans. In fact, what I am more curious about is the true identity of that good citizen. There are only 3 days left, it's time to contact him. 2 days passed in a flash. In the long and cold night, a cloaked figure hurried through the alley. Suddenly, I heard a cry for help from the darkness not far away. I am so hungry. Help me, help me. As if he was moved by compassion, he walked deeper into the alley without hesitation. But at the moment he was swallowed by the shadow, he also saw the true face of the thing in the alley. A mass of gelatinous black shadow, with only a mouth covering its entire body, was flowing slowly on the ground like asphalt. One of the mouths belonged to a child, who was still making a pitiful cry for help. It was the grotesque Thousand Ma shadow who was brought to Anchor Bay by the Privateering Alliance. The moment he stepped into the shadow, like a Venus flytrap triggered by an insect, the gelatinous black shadows flowing on the ground suddenly surrounded him from all sides. Boom! A burst of blazing white flames suddenly started burning from the black shadow's body, and in the blink of an eye, the monster was completely burned to ashes. Gunpowder formula tarsal phosphorus fire. Only 4 silver coins, 1 red on one side and 1 white on the other, fell to the ground and were picked up by the gunpowder artist, also Violet. Luckily, it ate one of its kind ahead of time, allowing me to harvest the 10th and 11th grotesques at once. He opened the pocket at his waist rare item traveler's bag and put 4 octopus silver coins in it and shook them. There were actually 24 of them accumulated inside. These monsters' desire for silver coins overcame their fear of a third-level extraordinary being. Violet took the risk of dying if she failed and volunteered to join the Black Mass ceremony, using herself as bait. In less than 3 days, all the weird things in Anchor Bay were almost cleared out. On the other hand, the fearful Redbeard avoided this thing like the plague, fearing that he would be marked. After the Black Mass ceremony began, all ties with it were severed. During the 3-day vacuum period, I didn't even know that my house had been robbed. After putting away the bag full of octopus coins, Violet reached out and tapped a miniature whalebone amulet stuffed in her ear. The ultra-small amulet whale song is made using micro-carving technology and uses the ear bone of the same whale. When connected to the legal network, short-range communication within Anchor Bay can be achieved. Hey, Mr. Good Citizen, I've basically finished my job, are you still busy? Chapter 74. Orphan Alliance, United Front. At the other end, the public anchorage of the Privateering Alliance. The wooden structure of the sailboat creaked rhythmically with the rising and falling waves. A lantern hanging on an iron hook cast a dim light, illuminating a long human shadow. The bloodlight of the bloody Holy Grail in Byron's palm gradually dissipated, and along with it, several privateer pirates who were sleeping soundly in the cabin also disappeared. After finishing his work, he turned around and walked out of the forecastle cabin on the privateer ship, which was used for officers to rest. He ran into two pirates who were patrolling at night with whale oil lamps. The two pirates saw a figure suddenly appear in front of them and were about to sound the alarm in panic. "It's me." Hearing the familiar voice and seeing Byron's face, they quickly took off their hats and saluted its Mr. Executioner. "We thought we had encountered that damn wild hunt. You are still patrolling the anchorage so late at night. You are truly worthy of being Captain Redbeard's confidant and right-hand man." What they saw was naturally the executioner Bill, who has recently become famous in the league. Most privateers knew that 3 days ago, just overnight, this executioner had emerged as a rising star and was particularly trusted by Redbeard. From being the 7th person in the Goddess of Vengeance, he suddenly became the 3rd person. His status is only below that of Edward Redbeard and First Mate Harvey the Jackal. Perhaps some old men among Redbeard's direct subordinates are not convinced, but in the eyes of the Privateering Alliance forces on the periphery, he is definitely an undisputed leading figure. Byron patted their shoulders in a friendly manner with the hand that had just killed someone, and encouraged them seriously. "It's all in service of the Alliance. Loyalty is not absolute, it is absolutely disloyal. As long as you are as loyal to the captain as I am, you will be appreciated by the congressman. During this period, that damned wild hunt has started committing crimes again, and more people have gone missing. You should step up your patrols and pay attention to safety. I'll go over first." The two privateers were somewhat flattered and nodded repeatedly. "Yes, Mr. Bill, we will behave well. Please walk slowly and watch your step." It was not until Byron walked away and a biting cold wind blew that they shrank their necks and put away their almost stiff flattering smiles. Looking at the dark and cold night and the endless pirate ships, he said uncertainly, "For 3 days, every time the day is over, the wild hunt sneaks into the anchorage and kills people everywhere. You said he shouldn't come to our ship today, right? Hey, didn't Mr. Bill just come for his inspection? That shouldn't be possible, right? By the way, since the captain is not here, how about we go back to the lower deck, at least there are more people there. Let's go." No wonder privateers are so nervous. It is said that 4 days ago, the captain's plan to reversely hunt down the wild hunt with its trapping cages failed, which led to the opponent's crazy revenge. Not only do they kill people on the shore, they also actively sneak into privateering ships anchored in the anchorage. In the past, the wild hunt mainly hunted extraordinary people and didn't care much about ordinary people. But now the hunting range has been expanded, and crimes are committed crazily with impunity. Everyone may become the next victim to disappear along with the wild hunt. The difficulty of defense increased countless times, the bait plan no longer worked, and the privateering captains, who had long been out of ideas, were completely at a loss. Basically, when privateers wake up from a sleep every day, there will be fewer familiar faces around them. Moreover, it is said that Wild Hunt successfully escaped from an ambush by a second-level professional, and the second-level transcendents who were originally sitting on the high platform were all scared. Panic continues to spread, and the name Wild Hunt may become their lifelong nightmare. But as something big was about to happen, any slight disturbance was forcefully suppressed by Redbeard. He simply ordered all ships to stay 100 meters away from the shore, beyond the radiation range of the octopus silver coins on those monsters, and to keep as much distance between them as possible, and he no longer intervened. This great pirate had long regarded the Wild Hunt and the Gunpowder Artist as a team, and subconsciously regarded Byron's hunting as normal revenge. As long as the other party is a Taiwanese citizen, he has been marked by the Black Mass ritual and will die in the subsequent natural disaster sooner or later. It won't take a day or two, why go through all the fuss? Even if we take a step back, as long as it does not affect the upcoming election, he does not care if a few more pirates from the Privateering Alliance who are not direct descendants die. In the end, it will not affect the overall situation. Only Captain Redbeard's direct lineage has been safe these days. The captain and other extraordinary people all hid on the Vengeance for refuge because they were afraid of death, but left us aside. In comparison, the hard-working Mr. Bill is more humane. He is always by our side when something happens. He is such a kind person with a cold face but a warm heart. Byron listened to the conversation that gradually faded away on the wind and shook his head and laughed. He used the mountain goat steps to leap forward, using the black backs of several man-eating sharks in the water to land, and quickly returned to the shore. His legendary level in the ship's log also quietly reached 19. The waves created by Wild Hunt among the pirate group are already big enough, there is no need for him to stir up trouble again, so let the bullets continue flying for a while. Perhaps at some point, the legendary level will naturally exceed the 20-point threshold. Let him gain an additional ability like the Child Guard's unbreakable body. If you are lucky, even if you cross the class level, it is not a dream to single-handedly defeat the strong. At this moment, the voice of the gunpowder artist came into his ears, and Byron answered in his heart, "Okay, I'm also finishing up here. The number of pirates I killed from the privateering alliance may not be as many as the number of missing Bay citizens, but the types are definitely wide enough. In theory, the more people in a certain ethnic group are sacrificed, the stronger the mark in the octopus silver coin will be, and the darker the blood color will be. Don't worry, no one from the privateer alliance will escape. What about those third-party freelance pirates you're responsible for? Oh, it's done. Not only free pirates, but also slaves from all over the world, black market traders, bounty hunters operating in the gray area, and other groups have been marked. Even the dungeon of the Anchor Bay enforcement team was empty. That thing will be absolutely shocked by then. Well done. In order to cooperate at the critical moment, Byron left an emergency contact method in the report letter. Then Violet sent him the whalebone amulet, whale song, which improved communication efficiency by several centuries. The two people who communicated through the legal network became close netizens and naturally formed an orphan alliance of the two major branches of the Bay people and a united front. By the way, he informed the other party of his aliases of Gunpowder Artist and Wild Hunter. No one loses out by changing vests. Of course, they are all smart people, and they all have some guesses about each other's true identity. A suspected third-level craftsman couldn't just appear randomly, and Byron just happened to have seen one at the venue. There were very few people in Anchor Bay who harbored deep hatred for the York family and had sufficient motivation to put it into practice. Violet just happened to know of a devil's son. But for the time being, no one has exposed the other. From an outsider's perspective, the two groups of Taiwan orphans who are in such a miserable state must sympathize with each other and have many common topics to talk about their misery, right? That's not right. The two people, who were full of bad intentions, both gave negative answers. They had no time to complain about themselves and only thought about how to make the enemy feel pain. There is a sense of mutual understanding. The way the two men break the impasse is to drag down all the people, ethnic groups, trading companies, and groups in Anchor Bay. It's like a person in distress in a lonely alley late at night and encounters an irresistible perverted murderer. He must not shout, "Murder, help," he needs to shout, "Fire, come and put out the fire." Because the former has nothing to do with them, it is highly likely that no one will lend a helping hand. The latter concerns everyone's interests. If you stand aside and do nothing, your own house may burn down, so you have to help. Only by tying everyone to the same chariot can we gather the most powerful force and achieve our goals. It doesn't matter whether the third party is willing or not. Therefore, the thing called anchor is not illusory. It exists not only in this special extraordinary world, but also in every corner of the ordinary world. During these 2 days, these two were the most rampant evil spirits committing crimes in Anchor Bay. The third-level Violet is responsible for dealing with the evil spirits and monsters, as well as marking all the tribes in the North Sea. Byron took advantage of Bill's position to easily gain control of the privateering alliance's internal intelligence and took control of the center. The only place he didn't attack was the Nemesis where Redbeard was stationed. It's not because rabbits don't eat grass near their burrows, but because every action has its consequences, and I am your confidant. They are the most dangerous of all the sacrifices. Byron looked at the Anchor Bay in front of him, as if he saw an invisible net connecting everyone, and nodded with satisfaction. Use octopus silver coins to hold back all pirates in the entire North Sea, use heartache to drag Redbeard down with him. As long as you complete the remaining 25% of the decryption work, you will be eligible to draw a powerful relic. I have 3 amulets. Even if the defense of Anchor Bay fails, I am fully confident that I can escape. Everyone thinks Storm Knight is reckless, but I'm actually quite steady. However, they now have another very critical problem. Byron tapped the whalebone amulet in his ear and asked, the most critical issue now is that we don't have the highest authority over the pirate code and cannot modify it. When it is noon tomorrow, the established procedures left by the pirate code will begin to run, and the real overseer will be selected through voting and fighting. The top priority now is to prevent Redbeard from gaining permission to open the outer maze lock. Otherwise, that straight fleet alone would be enough to crush us. The most troublesome thing is that he is immortal. You local tyrants who have been entrenched in Anchor Bay for thousands of years, do you have any way to get rid of him? The elegant male voice on the other side first teased, good citizen, you are well acquainted with the situation in Anchor Bay. We are not those Lancastrians like Hastings who played the game of the king is under the law too much. How could we not leave ourselves a backup authority? Without waiting for Byron to turn gloomy, he immediately straightened his tone and asked in a mysterious tone. Do you know what the great secret treasure is? Why is Iron Anchor Bay called Iron Anchor Bay? What exactly is this anchor anchoring? I do have a plan, and it depends on how far your confidant can go, like this. As Byron listened, his eyes gradually brightened. Chapter 75. Pirate Professional Skills Competition. At noon the next day, the black flag was flying in Anchor Bay. Thousands of pirate ships, large and small, all left their berths and stretched like dark clouds across the wide waters outside the port to the end of the site. But it is clearly divided into two opposing parts. Led by Edward Redbeard, the vice-chairman of the Council of Captains, and Violet, the Princess of the Bay, and the Flaming Rose. And the former is obviously much more than the latter. Before the game started, all the pirates had already chosen their own camps, leaving no room for fence-sitters to survive. Byron and his golden deer were naturally among them. In order to strengthen his control over the ragtag army, Redbeard stationed many of his trusted confidants on different pirate ships. Each of them led a group of their own pirates to command the squadron. Byron, who had already made up his mind, didn't mind leaving Redbeard's side temporarily, and returned to his own ship, the Golden Deer, as expected. He used it as the flagship of his fleet of 7 pirate ships. Standing behind him are his right-hand men, Guardian Nightbrook and Phantom Blade Guts. The honest man 8 Fingers, the indigenous youth Wyandotte who drank the Angel's Kiss and was promoted to gunner, and others were also eager to try. Little Hans also received a bottle of Angel's Kiss as a reward for his great contribution in assisting old Hans in the transformation of the Golden Deer. He was sitting on the deck, reading a book. After seeing the style of the gunpowder artist, he was determined to follow the path of the craftsman to drive away ignorance with knowledge and seize every opportunity to improve himself. Moreover, when it comes to how to deal with the side effects of Angel's Kiss, Little Hans has a huge advantage that no other crew member can match. He has a dad. Suddenly, Byron seemed to sense something and looked up at the clock tower in the center of the city. Everyone is ready, it's time to start. Clang, 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 under the gazes of countless people, some with ulterior motives, some anxious, some crazy and bloodthirsty. The ancient bronze bell in the bell tower was struck. The grand bell sound that happened once every 3 years resounded throughout the Anchor Bay and echoed far above the sea. A solemn atmosphere suddenly descended. Not only did the chaotic pirates stop, but even the fierce winds on the sea stopped. Then, in the spiritual vision of all the extraordinary people, a blood-colored illusory net slowly opened above their heads. That is the secondary law pirate code that directly governs this pirate port. Perhaps it was because there were so many extraordinary beings of the lighthouse sequence gathered here that even an illusory giant lighthouse was formed in the sky. Under the light, the extraordinary people of the same sequence all felt that their spirituality became more lively. Then, an ancient voice that seemed to have come from thousands of years ago, without any emotion, rang in the hearts of every pirate. Statistics: there are 1,186 counselors, and a total of captains who have the 10 commandments of pirates recognized by the code. There are no new applications for CO election of members this time. Overseer: there are 2 candidates, number 1, Deputy Speaker Edward Redbeard, number 2, Hereditary Member of Parliament Violet Herald. Once the election conditions are met, the campaign ceremony begins. Round 1, Voting. As soon as he finished speaking, blood fell in front of the eyes of every captain, and condensed into a ballot with a skull printed on it. Both the old sea dog and the new captain understood it instantly. Whether you can read or not, as long as you express your true meaning, even if it's just a dot, you can vote for your favorite candidate. Of course, Byron also has a vote that is not so valuable. Without even looking at it, he just wrote one and voted for Redbeard. Facts have also proved that his vote is indeed useless. The two beams of light representing the support rates of the two people were evenly matched at the beginning, with one chasing the other, but the gap soon widened. Violet was left half a body length behind Redbeard, and the gap became wider and wider until she could no longer catch up with him. Byron was not at all surprised by this situation. Redbeard had long since sold out all of the interests of Anchor Bay, and had even signed harsh contracts with other congressmen who were in collusion with him. Naturally, she is far ahead of Violet, who would never betray the interests of her tribe. But he hid the treasure map of Treasure Island carefully, thinking it would be his trump card to make a fortune in the future. Byron felt a little regretful that he couldn't trap more enemies. It was only 10 minutes before the ancient voice sounded again. Time is up, count the votes. Candidate number 1, 671 votes, candidate number 2, 515 votes. The first round of voting for the overseer election, candidate number 1, Edward the Redbeard, wins. A huge cheer suddenly broke out on the pirate ships surrounding the Nemesis, as if victory was already in their grasp. Haha, that chick lost the election, let alone a fight. Captain Redbeard is a wanted criminal with a bounty of £5. How could he lose to a little girl who doesn't even have a title? Our Captain Redbeard is immortal and an invincible pirate. If you ask me, the princess should just marry the captain. Wouldn't it be better if the two of them ruled Anchor Bay together? Her Royal Highness the Princess is 20 years old, and our captain is 40, they are a perfect match, ha ha ha. Many people have seen how Redbeard recovered unscathed from repeated bombings, and they are full of confidence in him. However, the election ceremony has only just begun. Different from the mundane world where only voting happens, this is a world of transcendental manifestation. Respect the collective will, but also respect the powerful individual force that can break the rules and suppress the collective will. The winner of the vote is not elected immediately. Instead, they will gain a privilege that is beneficial to themselves in the next fight phase. The pirate code automatically runs, and the ancient voice continues to sound. According to tradition, the alternative fighting methods are as follows. 1 single fight, 2 candidates fight to the death one-on-one until one of them dies or surrenders and begs for mercy. 2nd, the artillery duel, where 2 candidates each lead a 5-man artillery crew, occupy a fortress cannon 1 kilometer apart, and fire at each other until one side is completely destroyed or surrenders. 3 sailing race, drive your flagship around the island. The first one to finish wins. During the race, you can use any means to hinder the opponent, including but not limited to firing cannons, boarding battles, cursing, etc. 4 battleship combat, the battleships are deployed to fight a decisive battle until the enemy ship is sunk or the white flag is raised to surrender. 5 fleet decisive battle, each team commands its fleet to start a fleet melee, the conditions are the same as above. 6 treasure hunt competition, find a target treasure or decipher the unknown in a specific area. Any means are acceptable. Please vote for the winner, Edward Redbeard, to exclude one of the options, and spin the wheel to randomly select one of the remaining 5 fighting methods to start the fight. The fighting in the overseer election is also very pirate-like. These 6 fighting methods cover almost all the skills needed for pirate plundering. They correspond to boarding, landing and looting, chasing merchant ships, fighting among colleagues, looting caravans, and exploring and searching for treasure. It's more like a pirate professional skills competition than a fighting competition. Because of the professional subdivision of the ladder of glory, every extraordinary person has his own limitations and needs companions from other professions to complement each other, so it is impossible to cover everything. It is impossible to be good at all professional skills. Therefore, the exclusion privilege of the winner of the first game is particularly valuable. You can choose from a wide variety of fighting methods and eliminate the one that is most disadvantageous to you. I choose the second option, the artillery duel. Redbeard made his choice decisively without any hesitation. Having experienced being bombarded once, he never wants to experience it a second time. If he encounters this condition randomly, he will definitely lose. Then he waved his hands vigorously in the air, and the roulette wheel with only 5 options left began to spin rapidly. Redbeard looked at Violet opposite him and found that there was no expression on her face, as if she had completely given up. He couldn't help but reveal a smug smile of a winner. However, as the roulette wheel spun slower and slower, Violet suddenly gave Redbeard a strange smile. Didn't you notice that all the members of my party voted for you? Redbeard's heart skipped a beat, and he inexplicably had a bad feeling. "What do you mean?" Violet on the opposite side raised her right hand, and the whalebone seal ring on her index finger, which symbolized the power of the North Sea Pirate King, glowed brightly. A pleasant female voice sounded in everyone's ears. "As the agent of the North Sea Pirate King, I will forcibly lock onto the sixth event, the treasure hunt competition. At the same time, apply to open the great treasure trial of the Bay people and lock in the treasure hunt location, this time Valhalla, accept the electoral punishment mechanism and defeat all enemies." Just when everyone was confused and didn't know what was going on, the roulette wheel faded away like the wind, leaving only a line of text. "The fighting event has been confirmed, treasure hunt competition. Location, Valhalla. Contestants, Violet, all the captains of the extraordinary people on Redbeard's side. Victory decision, find the great treasure of the people of Taiwan and solve the secret of the prophecy." Obviously, this is one of the reasons why the Taiwanese people have ruled this place for thousands of years. The winner of the vote can exclude one item, but local tyrants like them can forcibly lock in one of the items, although fairness must be maintained at the cost of one person facing off against all the enemies. But he also took full advantage of the loopholes in the voting rules and placed 5 of his own pirates in the enemy camp. It suddenly became unclear who would win. What's going on? Isn't Valhalla the resting place of the Bay people? That's the world of the dead, I don't want to go there. The privateering alliance was in an uproar, and only Byron remained calm. This was all a plan he and the gunpowder artist had discussed in advance, and it did not surprise him. But when the long and desolate horn sounded, as the scene before my eyes rippled like water waves, a line of text suddenly appeared on the ship's log: "You have discovered a new secret, the prophecy of the revival of the race of Woden, the god of prophecy, kingship, and the wild hunt. The legend that the glory of the Taiwanese people will be reawakened by blood and fire is obviously more than just a simple legend. Historical influence 69, solution density 1%. Chapter 76, Hall of Valor, Ship Coffin Burial." Amid the interweaving of light and shadow, Violet's voice still echoed in everyone's ears. "Don't you want the legal authority of the pirate code and the great secret treasure that the people of the Bay have guarded for thousands of years? Don't you all want to know whether the prophecy of the revival of the Taiwanese people is true or false? Aren't you planning to join forces to divide up every bit of profit in Anchor Bay? Then, as you wish." She did not break any rules, but she pushed the fight, which should have been very clear, into an unknown direction. All 13 middle sequence senators and the extraordinary captain who had voted for Redbeard disappeared on their pirate ships one after another. Byron also felt his feet suddenly lose weight and his body began to fall. The wind whistled in my ears, mixed with a chilly chill and the stale smell that had accumulated over the years. Obviously, the treasure hunt location is not in Anchor Bay, or in other words, not in the surface world where normal people live. In the blink of an eye, Byron's feet touched the ground again. He just squatted slightly and regained his balance with the instinctive mountain goat steps. When I looked up, I found that I had arrived at the edge of a very deserted island. Apart from stones and muddy mudflats that were about to be flooded, there was not even the tiniest blade of grass, let alone birds or animals. He was standing on a rock exposed on the mudflat, and behind him was a dark sea. As far as the eye can see, the only man-made object is the black boat-shaped coffin stranded on the deserted island. Looking back at the sky behind me, I saw a huge anchor chain that seemed thicker than the mountain, rising from the sea outside the island and extending into the depths of the clouds in the sky. Previously, the gunpowder artist had asked him a question: "Do you know what the great secret treasure is? Why is Iron Anchor Bay called Iron Anchor Bay? What exactly is this anchor anchoring?" This is the answer. The anchor of Iron Anchor Bay anchors the resting place of all traditional Baidiwan people in history. It is also called Hall of Valor Valhalla. They always believe in Woden, the god of prophecy, kingship, and the wild hunt, and even after death they will not return to the church's creator or the chaos element. See chapters 33 and 34. Instead, you will come to this ancient region between material reality and the spiritual world. It symbolizes the origin and destination of all Taiwanese people, and is also their root. If interpersonal relationships are the anchor that individuals use to stabilize themselves, then this is the anchor that stabilizes the entire Bay Area ethnic group. The prototype of the modern pirate funeral ritual of putting pirates into wine barrels comes from the ship coffin burial of the Taiwanese people. The Baidiwan people who have retained their primitive beliefs worship dying on the battlefield and consider it a shame to die of old age in bed. This spirit is very similar to the die on the horse's hide pursued by the ancient generals in Byron's previous life. However, they used boats instead of horsehide to wrap the bodies. Important figures of the Wan people or those who died heroically in battle would be buried by boat. The specific practice was to place the deceased and her slaves, as well as some symbols of wealth, various livestock, jewelry, and weapons, in a boat. Then they lit torches and threw them into the boat, turning the bodies of the dead into ashes. No doubt the ancient ancestors of Byron and the Lancaster family also rest here. It was not until their descendants came to the mainland and converted to the church that they stopped upholding this tradition. Byron felt his real but not so strong connection with it and shook his head slightly. We should not make any comments on our ancestors who worked hard to create this great cause, nor are we qualified to do so. Everyone knows that the pirate warlord of Anchor Bay not only possesses enormous power. He can control part of the pirate code and is qualified to open the great secret treasure guarded by the people of the bay. But what outsiders don't know is that the great secret treasure that is prophesied to determine the rise and fall of the people of the bay is actually hidden in the deepest part of Valhalla, the place where the warriors sleep. The gunpowder artist also said that it is different from what outsiders imagine. There is no legendary god here, no endless pork, and no beautiful fairies in mink coats peeling garlic for everyone. Only. Whoosh! Byron seemed to have eyes in the back of his head. He dodged a rusty long-handled battle axe behind him. The axe was so powerful that it could not be retracted in time, and half of the axe blade was embedded in the rock. A cold light flashed at Byron's waist, and the half-sword in his hand came out like lightning. He then turned around and slashed with the bull sword style. Clang! There was no smooth feeling of a sharp blade cutting through flesh and bones, only the sound of metal clashing and a huge force that made the arm numb. The opponent actually used the tail end of the long-handled battle axe to block the blade of the half-sword at the moment the weapon was restrained. Master! Byron realized how difficult the attacker was. He immediately exerted force on his feet to retreat, using the force transmitted by the opponent to quickly increase the distance. He retreated to 7 steps away, to the end of the reef. Only then did he have time to carefully observe the enemy that appeared in front of him. He wore a horned helmet on his head, simple armor on his body, had dirty long hair and a beard, and exuded a tyrannical and brutal aura. Under the helmet was a pair of blue eyes, the standard of the Taiwanese people. Through the broken armor, one could see a penetrating wound on his pale chest, which could be seen from one end to the other. The weapon that could have caused such a horrific wound was most likely a heavy knight's spear. Since he was injured like this, he couldn't be alive. A heroic spirit that fights endlessly in Valhalla. The ship's log also shows the life story of this hero. The first-level Wanman berserker Sigurd died in a raid on the Iris Kingdom on the mainland 200 years ago. The one who killed him was a heavy lancer, which is very rare nowadays. As a brave warrior who died in battle, he went through the unique boat coffin burial ceremony of the Baidiwan people and came to this afterlife. The gunpowder artist had told him that Valhalla was actually made up of countless ship coffins from ancient times to the present. Even in the ancient legends passed down from generation to generation, Valhalla itself is a huge ship coffin. Naturally, there are countless dead souls, or heroic spirits, wandering inside. They would kill each other endlessly, only to be resurrected the next day. The one in front of you is one of them. I don't know what you went through in your life. As a Bay people berserker, your strongest fighting instinct after death is to ambush? You are really amazing. Only when Byron looked from this angle could he see the place where he had just stood, with a black corner slightly exposed in the sea. It was obviously a submerged, dilapidated ship coffin, and its owner was lying quietly inside. Like a stone, it has no breath, no body temperature, and is completely integrated with the environment. After detecting the presence of a living person, it slowly stood up from the water and did not reveal its whereabouts until launching an attack. Byron was extremely sensitive to the sound of the wind and saw through his movements in advance. At this time, the Pirate Code, which was promoting the election ceremony step by step, also issued a reminder to all captains entering Valhalla. In the first stage of the Great Secret Treasure Trial, you will obtain 3 relics and burial objects from heroic spirits. The power limit of the heroes on the island where each captain lands is the same level. Defeat 3 heroes to prove that you are the best among pirates. Captains who have cleared the game can summon their own pirate ships and crew members here, and take a sailing ship to enter the second level of Valhalla, the Atrium. At the same time that Byron received the hint, the heroic spirit also pulled the long-handled battle axe out of the reef. He assumed a stance window that looked like a longsword bull sword stance, crouched slightly, and was about to charge at Byron. Even though no one knew how long he had been dead, the fierce aura of a veteran of hundreds of battles still seemed almost condensed into substance. Among all the servants of the same level, he is obviously not a weakling. A fierce battle is about to break out. At this time, Byron calmly moved the tip of his sword down, pointing it at the ground, leaned forward towards the heroic spirit, bowed slightly, and performed the etiquette of a Taiwanese duel. Upon seeing this, the heroic spirit hesitated for a moment, then followed his instincts from before death and performed the same action. He was about to get ready to charge again. Byron on the opposite side had already thrown away the half-sword in his hand and quickly pulled out the flintlock rifle on the belt on his chest. Boom, 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 4 blazing lines of fire penetrated fiercely into the heroic spirit's head. Sword drawing technique again. Just as he staggered back, Byron raised his sword on tiptoe, rushed forward with a stabbing step, and chopped off his head with one sword. The heroic spirit fell to the ground and turned into a handful of ashes. Only a gold bracelet was left, which Byron put into his waist bag. These were the burial objects when he was buried in the boat coffin. As he reloaded the 4 flintlock muskets, Byron could not help but sigh. 200 years ago, even the matchlock gun had not been invented. Only by fighting against such antiques can you feel the difference between the times. Although there is no wine, meat, or fairies in the real Valhalla, the fighting skills of these warriors in their lifetime were absolutely impeccable. Endless battles are fought over a long period of time, and the heroic spirits of the warriors die here and are resurrected the next day. In their souls, there is only the purest fighting instinct left. There is no point in a head-on confrontation. Anyway, he will be resurrected tomorrow, so this isn't considered blasphemy against our ancestors, right? Byron looked up uncomfortably, as if someone was staring at him. No, 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 if the ancestors knew that I was so flexible, they would definitely be very pleased. That's it. Just as he was stepping on the rocks to rush towards another ship coffin within his sight, he suddenly heard a familiar, shrill howl coming from the island in the distance. Help! Chapter 77. Blood Eagle Punishment, One-Eyed Batch. Byron did not rush over immediately, but repeated the same trick on the way and did 2 more times, obtaining 2 relics and burial objects from 2 weak mortal heroes. Make sure you can call for help at any time. Only then did he avoid other boat coffins on the road and followed the sound to his destination. A lot of time was wasted on the road, and the cry for help had changed from a scream at the beginning to a groan as thin as a mosquito's. From the sound, you can tell that this guy is probably exhaling but not inhaling. Because Violet had limited the treasure hunt to herself and all the captains on Redbeard's side. Byron was not anxious at all after hearing the cry for help. Although 5 members of the Taiwan Democratic Party also took advantage of a loophole in the rules and joined in by voting for Redbeard. But it was not his turn to rescue the 3rd-level pirate. The reason I came here was just to see if I could get some bargains. Byron hid far behind a towering reef and looked towards the mudflat in front. Then he saw a bloody eagle lying on a ship coffin that had been torn into pieces and pieced together to form a cross. No, it's not an eagle, but a person who looks like an eagle. Byron's expression froze and he subconsciously held his breath. He looked closely with eyes wide open and found that the unlucky guy whose voice sounded familiar was actually the captain of the Privateer Alliance, Woodpecker, who had a grudge against him. At this time, Woodpecker was being stripped naked by 2 Bay citizen heroes. Then he opened the ribs from the back and pulled out 2 lungs that looked like wings. As the unfortunate fellow took his weak breaths, his lungs flapped up and down like eagle's wings. Bloody and terrifying. A name immediately popped up in Byron's mind, Blood Eagle Punishment. The Blood Eagle here obviously does not refer to an eagle, but a human. This was a form of punishment invented by the people of the North Bay. In Byron's opinion, it might be more cruel and bloody than beheading or lynching. Before the execution, the prisoners would be fed a potion by the locals to ensure that they would not die quickly. The prisoner was then tied to the rack with his back facing up and his face facing down. The executioner would slowly use a knife to cut open the victim's flesh, exposing his ribs. The prisoner's ribs were then pried out from the back by hand, making them look like 2 outstretched wings. Due to the effect of the herbs, the prisoner has not yet died completely, and there is still a weak breath in his lungs, so the wings will float gently. Moreover, the Blood Eagle punishment is not only a punishment, but also an extraordinary ritual of black witchcraft. One of them seemed to be a heroic spirit who had mastered forbidden knowledge during his lifetime. He held a dagger made of human bones in his hand and chanted a spell. Choo choo choo. The sharp tones, like the cries of an eagle, echoed repeatedly over the open space. Even though he had been dead for who knows how many years, he could still perform black magic as smoothly as if it were instinct. Woodpecker's bloody body was shaking even more violently. The bones broke through the flesh, and wisps of blood-colored mist clung to it, forming pieces of flesh, blood, and feathers. Through this bloody punishment ritual, a living extraordinary person is actually transformed into a blood eagle that can be driven by others. Byron watched all this coldly, without any intention of taking any action. This is also the reason why Violet dares to challenge all the enemies alone. Those who are not descendants of the Valhalla people will be excluded by Valhalla and will attract strong hostility from the heroic spirits. Not only will they be attacked first, but they will also be treated extremely cruelly after being defeated. This is a punishment that is only imposed on mortal enemies. Of course, the heroic spirits are not very friendly to their bloodline descendants. In other words, fighting bravely with all their might is the most noble welcome ceremony they can give to their younger generations. Perhaps only Violet, the most orthodox Taiwanese princess, will be treated preferentially. The woodpecker was about to turn into a blood eagle. Squeak, a sharp insect-like chirping sound suddenly came from her body. Dozens of bloodlines shot out from her body and fled in all directions like lightning. The two heroes obviously did not expect this change and had no time to stop it. The woodpecker is a beast tamer by profession, and has mastered the forbidden knowledge, blessing of the Ant Queen, and has raised his own beast-taming blood tapeworm in his own body. After such a long period of symbiosis, the tapeworm almost became one with her. The deeper woodpecker delved into forbidden knowledge, the more spirituality and tapeworm merged. In the end, even if you abandon your body, you can continue to survive as an alien. But she hasn't reached that level yet, and she must find a new host as soon as possible in order to survive. She just screamed for help at the top of her lungs, not because she wanted someone to save her life. It is just to attract a kind-hearted person with flesh and blood in this Valhalla full of undead, so that they can take over their bodies. Haha, I smell it, I smell it. One of the blood tapeworms, which was completely red with an earring wrapped around its tail, suddenly emitted a spiritual fluctuation of surprise. Then, like a rubber band, it shot towards a towering reef. There was the smell of a flesh host there. But when the woodpecker saw the human figure hiding behind the reef, it was subconsciously startled. Executioner Bill. She hesitated. This Mr. Executioner is Redbeard's true right-hand man and trusted confidant. Everyone in the Privateering Alliance knows about it. If I took over his body, even if I escaped this disaster, I would probably be eaten alive by the ferocious Redbeard. Never mind, at worst I can just change bodies when I meet someone else. Even before the transformation to Queen Ant is completed, frequent changes of body will cause the host to lose itself, but it is better than dying now. The woodpecker would hesitate, but Byron, who had been prepared in advance, would not. If he had known that this guy was going to take over his body and transform him into a woman, he might have been more decisive when he took action. Byron drank a glass of blood brew frosted margarita in advance, and cold mist came out of the corners of his mouth and nostrils. Just at the moment when the woodpecker circled the reef. Laugh, a biting cold current suddenly gushed out of his mouth. Once the blood tapeworm leaves the warm human body, it is difficult for it to resist the severe cold and its physical strength quickly declines. At this moment, even her brain seemed to freeze and solidify. Then Byron smashed it into pieces with his scabbard. The black mass ceremony continued, and elements of her death were collected by the octopus silver coin on Byron's body. The insect song was filled with reformed crew members, and the collective imprint of the Hastings Privateering Alliance was further deepened. Blood Holy Grail is activated at the same time. Byron discovered that this might be due to the woodpecker's habit of raising crew members for consumption. The transmuted blood brewed by this blood nematode queen is almost as good as that of a second-level transcendent. I can prepare a few more cups of angel's kisses to give the crew members a deep dose of maternal love. This is a great bargain. Not only was there the blood of transmutation, but Woodpecker also sent an extra fourth heroic relic. This is the key prop for them to call for reinforcements, and the Woodpecker was reluctant to throw it away even when he was escaping. But compared to the 3 pieces Byron collected himself, this gold earring is obviously a little different. There was a right eye engraved on it, which looked somewhat abstract but very familiar to Byron. It's exactly the same eye as the one on the cover of my ship's log, Chapter 2. Echoes of history also meticulously read out the information carried on it. Sacrificial earrings, made by a certain god of prophecy, kingship, and wild hunt thousands of years ago. It was once a rare object, but after a long time it degenerated into a common object and finally became a burial object of its owner. Together with the spirit of the master, he awaits reawakening in Valhalla. Secret, prophecy, kingship, and the prophecy of racial revival by the god of the wild hunt, Woden. Historical influence 69. The decoding density also jumped from 1% to 11%. An ancient emblem from thousands of years ago? From the god of the wild hunt. There was very little valuable information, but Byron suddenly realized that perhaps his biggest trump card, ship's log, did not come out of thin air. It's not like I've traveled through time myself, it's just a natural benefit for newbies. Originally, Valhalla was just the battlefield they chose to deal with the crisis, and it was never for searching for any legendary treasure. After getting the hint, Byron couldn't help but develop a strong curiosity about this god who only existed in legends and the great secret treasure in the prophecy. The historical influence of the Red and White Rose War is only 31, but it already has a world-class influence. Although I am very sure that there is no real god in this world except the Creator who has never appeared before humans. But the influence of 69 is probably enough to completely subvert the world order. Unfortunately, Violet said there are 9 floors in Valhalla. Without the ability of a high-sequence pirate king, one is simply not qualified to explore the ultimate secret. This matter about the source of the ship log may be very important, but it is not urgent. It is better not to be too ambitious and continue to improve your strength honestly. Once I get through this safely, I believe Violet will give me a favor and let me come in again in the future to completely crack this secret. She doesn't want her father, the North Sea Pirate King, to be missing, right? At this moment, a few sharp cries suddenly came from overhead, interrupting Byron's thoughts. Looking up, I saw 4 or 5 huge blood eagles circling in the sky above my head. The heroic spirit may not have many opportunities to turn outsiders into blood eagles, but when the deceased is buried in a ship coffin, he, she, and her, slaves must also be buried alive. These blood eagles were obviously the enemies killed by the heroic spirit during his lifetime. After locking onto Byron's outsider, it immediately pounced on him. Chapter 78. Come, let the ancestors eat grapes. Byron didn't dare to personally test the fighting power of these blood eagles, so he grabbed a few burial objects and ran towards the beach for his life. Even if every blood eagle is inferior to a normal first-level servant. But just like when Byron, Brooke, and Gus beat a second-level ghost behind to death, no matter what level of extraordinary person they are, 2 fists cannot beat 4 hands. If you are surrounded by them, with their beaks and claws, it will probably turn into a different kind of sky burial. Byron quickly drank a glass of flying grasshopper which was made of grasshopper juice and vodka. The taste was hard to describe. He temporarily gained a stronger jumping ability than mountain goat footsteps. Like a giant grasshopper, it stretched out its long legs and leaped rapidly between the rocks. Even though the 2 powerful Bay citizen heroes behind him, who had died in different ways, could not outrun him, they still followed closely behind him. The long-range weapon in his hand is extremely powerful. It was not an expensive crossbow that required careful maintenance, but a slingshot with a very primitive structure but considerable power. A leather bag was tied with 2 leather belts, and a pebble was placed inside the bag. When it rotates above the head for a few weeks and reaches the maximum speed, suddenly release one of the straps, and the stones in the bag will fly out along the tangent direction. The maximum range can reach 200 meters, and professionally trained soldiers can hit the target every time within a range of 80 meters. Fortunately, Byron acted cautiously and stayed far enough away at the beginning. Snapped, the pebble hit a rock next to him, and the huge force caused the rock to explode. The splashing gravel left a thin bloody mark on his cheek. Byron was so focused that everything around him began to slow down. The spiritual aura connected to the 6th sense almost completely replaced the normal 5 senses. Weather intuition and Storm Knight's instinctive control of the wind allowed him to lock onto every sharp whistle coming from behind him and react in milliseconds. 1, 2, 3. In the end, it was unclear whether he really performed exceptionally well or his ability to transfer danger was effective. He did not get hit directly by the slings until he ran out of the sling's attack range at a speed far exceeding that of the 2 heroes chasing him. Seeing the vast sea finally appearing ahead, he quickly raised the few heroic spirit relics in his hands and shouted to the sky. Summon the golden deer! As they turned into light and disappeared. The anchor on his body, which was hooked on the 10 commandments of the Golden Hind pirates, instantly tightened. A white light flashed before his eyes, and finally the golden deer and all the crew members on it were dragged into Valhalla. The blood eagle in the sky had already caught up to Byron's head and began to dive towards him. Instead of slowing down, he leaped into the sea. The water splashed, and a ferocious and terrifying man-eating shark suddenly emerged, caught Byron with its forehead as broad as a mast, and then quickly turned around. It swung its tail, leaving a white line of water and rushed towards the golden deer. Sharks kept jumping out of the water around, scaring the blood eagles that were about to catch up with Byron and forcing them to regain their altitude. The man-eating shark began to grow rapidly after eating salmon and those lesser zombies. The largest one has grown to 9 meters long and weighs about 4,000 kilograms, almost as big as a killer whale. Every sharp tooth in his mouth looked like a dagger. On the pirate ship, Guardian Knight Brooke had already commanded the crew to line up on the deck with long muskets in hand. Musketeers, 3-stage shot, fire. White smoke exploded, and the guns fired alternately. The continuous hot bullets turned into a metal storm, sweeping across the blood eagles that were lingering in the sky. Knock them down directly from the sky. Before it hits the sea, it turns into ashes and is blown away by the wind. Byron grabbed a rope and jumped onto his loyal golden hind. He was still frightened and could not bear the warm greetings from his ancestors. Looking back, I saw the 2 Bay citizen heroic spirits also chased to the shore and waved to Brooke expressionlessly, "Please give the 2 ancestors a bunch of grapes so that they don't have to send any more." Yes. The loyal guardian knight had no idea what had just happened. But he also knew that his master seemed unhappy, so he quickly winked at the indigenous youth Wyandotte who had already taken position next to the 32-pound carronade. The latter immediately ordered the battery to load the shotgun shells and adjust the muzzle to aim at the heroic spirit on the shore. Boom! After one shot, the 2 heroes who were still roaring with their slings in their hands were instantly turned into ashes by 500 grape-shot bullets. Goodbye, both of you. I think when you are resurrected tomorrow, you will completely forget this little unpleasantness. We will still be good friends next time we meet. The frustration that Byron felt from being chased all the way was finally swept away, and he saluted them silently. Wandering in the gap between life and death with a highly concentrated mind, and then relaxing again. The logbook showed that his spirituality had increased by another 0.1, reaching 2.6, which was already half of the 5-point spirituality required for the second-level professional level. As his spirit became more lively and sharp, he felt that his storm swordsmanship seemed to have improved. This was also an added benefit of him being constantly drawn into various whirlpools. For a storm knight, unwavering commitment to long voyages, adventures, plunder, and taxation can all lead to spiritual growth. Of course, the prerequisite is that you must be able to survive. However, if you think about it the other way around, it also proves that Violet's strategy was effective enough. Whoever dares to oppose me, my ancestors will take him away. The first round of the treasure hunt separated the captains from their pirate ships and crews, putting them in an unprecedented weak position. Just like in a fight one must eliminate options that are disadvantageous to oneself, a supernatural being cannot have all-encompassing abilities, or else one will fail if one is not careful. Even though the highest level of heroes buried on this island is only first level, it doesn't mean we can't attack it. With this wave of attacks, it shouldn't be a problem for the Taiwanese heroes to take away 30% to 40% of them. Byron had just explained the situation here to his crew members when the whalebone amulet in his ear suddenly picked up Violet's urgent cry for help. Not even masked in the voice of a gunpowder artist anymore. "Good citizens, come to the atrium and help." The bastard Redbeard was actually cheating. I don't know when he secretly used his figurehead goddess of vengeance to mark us with hate. The distance between the 2 ships was forced to be locked within the main gun range. As soon as I entered the atrium, my flaming rose came face to face with the goddess of vengeance, and the landing points of the 2 ships were exactly the same. If Redbeard hadn't been standing on the deck and been hit by several stray bullets, he would have led the stormtroopers to attack the flaming rose. As teammates in the Orphan Alliance, the 2 have different responsibilities. Violet had already explained the details of Valhalla to Byron, and he also knew the rules of fighting in the atrium. Byron waved off the strange association of Redbeard got hit by several stray bullets for no apparent reason with a strange look on his face, and immediately gave Violet a remote command. "Understood. Try to increase the distance first and try to keep the pirate ship within the maximum range of both sides. If you are constrained by the effect of figurehead nemesis and cannot get rid of it, try to take advantage of the situation. If you want to escape with a level 4 ship that is not much stronger than a cruiser, the nemesis that Redbeard uses as his flagship will never be able to catch you. I know all the parameters of that ship, and it's not a pirate ship at all." Violet was stunned by this. "Downwind? Why do we have to fight for the downwind? Shouldn't warship combat be about fighting for the upper hand? I'm confident I can get it." Knowing she would ask back, Byron scratched his head. Obviously, no one can be perfect. In her early years, whalers arranged for her to go out to study, and they never thought of letting a girl inherit the promising career of pirates. It was obvious that they had no experience in fighting a large battleship. But the situation was urgent, and he couldn't explain it clearly in a few words, so he just emphasized it again with a stronger tone. Listen to me. Keep Flaming Rose always at the downwind side of Goddess of Vengeance. Once you practice it yourself, you will fully understand it. Moreover, I am a graduate of the 23rd class of the Royal Naval College, Hattings, with excellent grades in all subjects. He experienced his first naval battle at the age of 12, and began to practice on his family's third-class battleship during his spare time at the age of 15. He had achieved this feat and had touched the most valuable steering wheel on every battleship of level 3 or above under the royal family without being shot. He is familiar with all the combat parameters of the battleship Hattings. What have you learned as a young lady who has never received any training in pirate skills? Violet was silent for a moment, and murmured. Sacred Silver Empire Vinaya Academy of Arts, majoring in painting and sculpture art design, and minoring in classical dance, Chapter 51. But I got in based on my real ability. The gunpowder artist is also a real artist, although in the end he didn't like the artistic expression of the hall sequence painter, so he chose to work as a craftsman. I heard the girl talk about her experience of being admitted to a famous art college. Byron seemed to be able to see through the sound that she was sticking out her sizable chest, and she was obviously quite pleased with herself. But he curled his lips in disdain and said something that she didn't quite understand. If you fail the exam, I can still hope that you, a failed student, can unexpectedly develop some special talents. You haven't even failed the exam, yet you still dare to be so proud here? Get out of the way and follow my instructions until I come over. As he said this, he personally took control of the steering wheel and made the golden deer foreman on the sea. The moment the head and tail connected, the entire ship and the man-eating sharks in the water disappeared on the sea. Chapter 79, Going Down with the Ship, Revenge. Valhalla, second floor, atrium. Woo woo woo. The bitter cold wind howled in and out, and the wind speed gradually increased to a level 25 wind of 6 knots. White foam broke through the peaks and formed swirling white strips like snow. The sea conditions here are actually the same as those in the North Sea outside, which enters winter in November. Many pirate ships from various historical periods, which were in tatters and should have sunk long ago, were cruising in the water like sharks. There are rowing boats, dragon-headed boats, paddle boats, sloops, caravels, galleons, etc. As long as they have existed in history, they are all available. Apparently they are all collective ship coffins. An entire pirate team of dozens or even hundreds of people was buried on one ship. Piracy has always been a high-risk profession. If they were defeated at sea, they would usually face the tragic end of having their entire ship destroyed, so they would often fight to the death and be exceptionally brave. It is not uncommon for real ships to become ship coffins after a brutal battle. A very small number of them became the ghost ships that everyone on the sea feared, while most of the remaining spirits came here and fought endlessly on the sea surface of the atrium all day long. The second level of the Great Treasure Trial. Defeat a collective ship coffin and seize the pilot's whale oil lantern. You can follow its guidance and enter the third level, the Kingdom of Night. This treasure hunt competition is obviously a comprehensive test that integrates other pirate professional skills. But who doesn't know that the only one who could pass the level in history was the high sequence 5th order legendary pirate King Whale Hunter? As soon as the pirate ship captained by the non-Wanman captain came in, it immediately encountered a tough battle. No one had the ambition to seize the great treasure and only wanted to save his life. The most intense naval battle of all the atriums was when two large pirate ships flying skull and crossbones flags were chasing and fighting each other. On the front ship, there stood a figurehead of a girl holding a bright red rose. The shape is a standard 4th class ship with 50 guns, and it is also a nominal battleship between a cruiser and a battleship. The displacement is 1,000 tons and the capacity is 350 people. A total of 18 24-pound guns, 20 12-pound guns, and 10 9-pound guns were installed on the 2 through gun decks and the open main deck, and 2 6-pound small guns were installed on the poop. Behind it was a level 3 battleship that was obviously a whole circle larger. There is also a female statue standing on the bow, with bloodshot eyes, a torch in one hand and a dagger in the other, exuding a crazy and brutal aura. It was a large ship with 74 shipboard guns, including 32 24-pound guns, 9-pound guns, and pound guns. With a crew of 680 and a displacement of 1,500 tons, it is also the main battleship among the current naval battleships of the Kingdom of Hastings. It can be said to be the most perfect combination of firepower, speed, and cost in this era. Unlike the compromise-type battleships such as the Tier 4 ships, the Tier 3 ships are real weapons for suppressing sea power. Even though there are first-class and second-class ships on it, it is undoubtedly the most equipped model among the battleships, so many that one can be given to Redbeard as his flagship. These are the Flaming Rose and Goddess of Vengeance that passed the first level faster than Byron and arrived at the second-floor atrium. Obviously, there is no perfect plan in the world, and there is no enemy that will just take a beating without fighting back. There was a small incident that was not planned. Redbeard used the special effects of the figurehead to attack them in advance, resulting in both sides landing at the same point when they entered the vast second floor. A level 4 ship was nearly run over by a level 3 ship, a flying dragon. Fire! You're lucky. I, Redbeard, can't solve the secret in a short time. Only the North Sea pirate king whale hunter has solved it in history. But I can take care of the competition. Main guns and secondary guns fire freely, kill them for me. Redbeard put down the brass telescope in his hand and gave orders to the first mate behind him. Boom! 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 During the pursuit, the artillery on the third-level ship in the rear, which was within the firing range, also continued to fire at the Flaming Rose. However, the Flaming Rose was intimidated by the internal information provided by Byron and did not dare to open fire until it was sure that it could defeat the enemy in one fell swoop. Figurehead Goddess of Vengeance effect, revenge for every slight. 1 hate mark, actively release the mark, and there will be an invisible anchor connecting each other, continuously tracking, and never falling behind. Every time it is about to get rid of it, it will passively increase its speed and pull the marked person back into the main gun's range. It was with this ability that Redbeard secretly locked onto the Flaming Rose before the fighting began. 2. If the ship is hit by the enemy's artillery fire, the passive effect will be triggered, and the torch in the hand of the Goddess of Vengeance will shoot out a ray of light to lock onto her enemy. The dagger in his hand will emit a cold light, covering all the artillery on his own warship, giving them a temporary boost of revenge. If you fire at this time, you will get a 20% trajectory correction, which will effectively increase your hit rate by 20%. And don't forget that the main gun of the third-level ship is a 32-pounder, while the main gun of the fourth-level ship is only a 24-pounder. One is a heavyweight, the other a lightweight. If they had a slapping match, the one who would fall would undoubtedly be the latter. On the rear deck of the Flaming Rose, Violet hung up the whale song communication. Although he was still full of doubts, he chose to trust the judgment of Byron, a professional. Moreover, what he had just said was a disguised acknowledgement of his identity. Violet could not think of any reason why he would harm her. As soon as she made up her mind, she decisively gave orders to the crew around her: we should seize the upper hand, delay time, and wait for the other counselors to come and join us, and then defeat him in one fell swoop. The helmsman, the mast chief, and a group of pirate officers were all stunned as she was just now, and subconsciously reminded her, "Captain, it is common sense to seize the upper hand in a warship duel. If we go to the leeward and accidentally fall into the opponent's wake, we will lose all maneuverability." Violet naturally had no idea why he did this, but as a captain she couldn't show her weakness, so she asked back. "Have you ever engaged a battleship? Do as ordered." "As you command, Captain." Objections were just a subconscious reaction. Everyone knew that in wartime, the 10 commandments of pirates and the captain's orders must be strictly enforced without compromise. Seeing her companions busy at work, Violet couldn't help but sigh. Including herself, this generation of Taiwanese pirates is indeed lacking in talent. Her father, the North Sea pirate king whale hunter, disappeared at sea, taking away a group of the most elite Bay People crew members. Child guardian Dennis, the third-level berserker, has long been old, and his crew members naturally retired earlier than him. In addition, in recent years, many of the Bay pirates on the east coast and the Barbary pirates on the west coast have left their homeland. Most of the elite pirates who were capable, ambitious, and still in their prime turned to the new southern routes. Most of those who remain on the coast of the Old World, except for the young people who have not yet grown up, are mediocre people. Not even one of them survived a head-on collision with a naval battleship. Of course, this is a hell of a joke no matter where it happens. Not to mention a pirate ship, even a well-class cruiser can survive a fight with a battleship. Even if this deed happened in a large maritime power, it would make a person a hero overnight, be officially recorded in the history of navigation, and even give him a title. Helmsman, full starboard, cut to leeward. The sail rope is long, and the windward angle is adjusted, with the left rear side facing the wind. In the chase between the two warships from northwest to southeast, the Flaming Rose, which is equivalent to a fourth-level ship, gradually and actively moved to the leeward direction of the Goddess of Vengeance. However, thanks to its superior maneuverability, it always remained near the maximum range of the opponent's main gun and did not fall into the 300-meter wake created by the opponent. Moreover, when they adjusted from the enemy's port side to the starboard side, the deafening sound of the 32-pound main gun suddenly stopped. The 24-pound secondary guns, which had a slightly shorter range, had no other effect except splashing water all over them. It has clearly reached the limit of its range. This means that the seemingly majestic and domineering third-level ships can't hit them? What's going on? Why aren't they firing? The pirate officers, who had been pessimistic about Violet's order, suddenly widened their eyes and leaned over the bulwarks to look across. The navigator holding a telescope was the first to solve the mystery. That is, the Nemesis has closed the gun ports of its main guns. I understand. It's because the draft of battleships above level 3 is too deep, and the main gun ports are too close to the water surface. When the sea is rough and the waves are high, in order to prevent the warship from taking in water on the leeward side that is tilted into the water, the gun ports must be closed and only the secondary guns must be retained. So that's how it is. They are just inexperienced, not stupid. I immediately realized how brilliant this take advantage of the situation order was when facing the current sea conditions and the current enemy. The 32-pound heavy gun at the bottom of the third-class ship is located in the middle of the hull. The lower frame of the gun port is only about meters away from the sea surface. If the sea conditions are slightly higher, waves will come up from the gun port. It's not that the Nemesis doesn't want to attack, but that it can't. And when both sides fell into an extremely awkward stalemate, the coffin ships cruising nearby followed behind the Nemesis like sharks smelling blood. The longer the time drags on, the more coffins will gather, and the less pressure the Flaming Rose will be under. Captain, you are wise. I believe that there is no such thing as someone who is born with knowledge. I didn't expect that the captain, who had never fought in a few naval battles, could see through the mystery at a glance and find the opponent's weakness. God, it's amazing. Perhaps the god's prophecy of revival will be fulfilled on the captain. Captain, please teach us. The crew members gradually became more and more exaggerated, making Violet's cheeks slightly red. But he also felt a bit elated after finally getting recognition from others, and said with a smug look on his face. Although the credit mainly goes to the good citizens, Captain Ben also has some credit. Yes, the greatest achievement is listening to advice. So, how about asking him to be the first mate on the Flaming Rose after this is over? Chapter 80. Captain, don't be afraid, I'm coming. Not long time. The third-level counselors from both camps followed closely behind the two candidates for governor, passed the first level one after another, and entered the atrium. They did not cooperate with the kingdom, so no matter how rich they were, they could not get a complete third-level battleship as their flagship like Redbeard. Even if they get it, they will be hunted down and killed by the navy. Most of the pirate ships on hand are nominal battleships such as the fourth-level ships, or large galleons of the same level. The highest configuration is just like the Flaming Rose, with the addition of a rare figurehead with special effects bonuses. Qian Feng, let's go and meet up with Her Royal Highness the Princess according to the plan. The 1,000-year glory of Iron Anchor Bay belongs to us, the Bay people. If you want to destroy Iron Anchor Bay and cut off the foundation of the Bay people, you have to run over us first. The Taiwanese camp is eager to defend their homes, and the Redbeard camp is not far behind. If the deputy speaker loses, we will definitely not have a good ending. Let's fight these stubborn Taiwanese people. As long as we sell the great secret treasure of the Bay citizens, we can all become noble lords. Pirate ships drew white arcs on the sea and rushed towards the same position in the atrium. The Bay citizens also noticed that the Redbeard team did look very powerful at the beginning. But after filtering through 2 layers of secret realms, most of the power of the mob has been offset by the ship coffins that are everywhere. In this atrium chosen by Violet as the main battlefield, only their top combat forces can decide the outcome. With the help of many heroic ancestors, their confidence suddenly increased greatly. Just a little bit slower, Byron also drove the Golden Deer into the sea with huge waves. The huge anchor chain above his head still stretched across the sky, extending deeper into Valhalla, as if there was no end. When Byron received the rules for passing the pirate code, he also unsurprisingly received another wave of warm hospitality from his ancestors. Collapse, the bowstring exploded, and a crossbow nearly as thick as a wrist was nailed firmly into the side wall of the Golden Deer. Not far away, there was a dragon-headed boat that was changing its course by paddling and rushing towards this side like a giant centipede. It was equipped with sails and oars, and was covered with traces of smoke, fire, and blood from battles, and looked very old. Further away, there were several similar ancient dragon-headed boats that also turned around. Before I saw the one-eyed emblem, I might not have been interested in exploring further. Now I feel that even if I can't clear the level in one go, it would be good to get a few more clues. Besides, the whale oil lantern was very useful, and it was no problem to deal with these enemies. A flash of blood-red light flashed in the depths of Byron's pupils, and he uttered, "Teach them how to behave." The 27 man-eating sharks that had been acting as sword-bearing guards and always following the Golden Deer suddenly jumped out of the water and rushed forward. Click! The largest shark in the group was 9 meters long, and the rest were an average of 6 meters long. Leaping out of the water, it could easily overturn this antique that has been obsolete for who knows how many years with its own weight. It may be beyond their capabilities to deal with the warships and pirate ships that are popular in this era. But it is effortless to deal with this kind of dragon-headed ship with a low hull and no cannons. Byron, who had experienced another history and timeline, felt this most deeply. The whole world is moving forward. The difference in combat power between the extraordinary people may not be that big, but the upgrading of warships and weapons is enough to crush them. Unless it becomes a relic, not everything becomes more powerful as it ages, and this is especially true for warships that are the crystallization of cutting-edge technology. The old antique is indeed useless. What happened next was really too appetizing. Scramble! The crew members of the Golden Deer who witnessed this scene all turned around and silently covered their eyes, unable to bear to watch any longer. Our captain had just treated 2 ancestors to grapes, and then sent dozens of them on a day trip to satisfy their hunger. I don't know where the ancestors will be resurrected tomorrow. If so, just pretend we didn't say anything. One of the sharks swam up to the boat and spat a slobbery whale oil lantern at its owner. Byron took it and looked at it carefully, and sure enough, he found the one-eyed emblem on the crystal lampshade that was full of impurities. Logbook written records, a lamp used by ancient navigators to see through the fog with the help of the god's right eye. Now it is just a low-quality antique. Once it leaves the range of Valhalla, it will be completely destroyed like those ancient heroes. No substantial information was obtained, and the decoding density did not increase any further. Byron casually hung it on the belt around his waist, not intending to use it to continue exploring the next level of the Kingdom of Night. Although I can't use this thing, my most respected captain can. Violet can't do anything to the ancestors, so I will prepare the key props for her in this plan. Violet's father disappeared after he cleared the level in order to further search for the secret of revival. Ever since he entered Valhalla, Edward Redbeard, whose extraordinary level was only level 3, was destined to be unable to complete the treasure hunt mission. But Byron and Violet went to so much trouble not just to make him fail and lose the authority of the pirate code. Because the York family and Redbeard can fail countless times, but the Bay people will be completely doomed if they fail once. Their goal is to bury the immortal Redbeard forever in Valhalla. And he has come up with a perfect plan to break his immortality. Byron connected Violet's whalebone amulet and reminded her, "Hey, Miss Artist, is the situation stable? Just do your best to hold them at the critical point, the longer the better. The more collective coffins we gather, the greater our chances of winning. Even if there are only a few small garrons in these ship coffins, they can still be killed by being used as cannon fodder to consume Redbeard's side's artillery shells. Once all our great pirates have arrived, we will immediately start to act according to the plan." After confirming Violet's location through the whalebone amulet, they set off immediately. But the ship Byron himself was going to reunite with was not the Flaming Rose, but the Vengeance. "My most respected captain, don't be afraid, your loyal Bill is here." The world's fastest 3-masted ship, the Golden Hind, drew an arc on the sea that was more elegant than any pirate ship, and sailed away at a terrifying speed of 13 knots. The sky is dim and the war clouds are hanging low. About 3 hours later, the sea in the atrium was wrinkled by the continuous force 6 wind, and layers of ripples piled up like folds. The towering waves surged up like rows of cavalry, and the waves broke in the wind, pulling out foam, which turned into battle flags held high in the hands of the knights. The vast amount of water vapor rushed in, submerging people in just a moment, and even causing a strong feeling of suffocation. The two parties in the fight had no idea what was happening in the outside world. A strange storm that seemed familiar seemed to be about to roll in. Bang! A stone bullet fired from a catapult hit the deck of the Nemesis. The broken stones splashed and took away one of Redbeard's ears. Since the war began, the big pirate has been standing on the rear deck, unmoved and calming the people. But as time went by, something started to seem strange in the crew's eyes. Although the captain could recover in just a few breaths no matter how seriously injured he was, the probability of him being hit by a stray bullet today was a bit too high. It's like offending the god of death. If anyone else were in his position, he would have been riddled with wounds and died on the spot. Fight back! Redbeard gave the order expressionlessly. A beam of light lit up from the torch of the figurehead goddess of vengeance, shining on a collective ship coffin that was coming from the upwind position. Then the 32-pound main gun opened fire, and with a 20% hit rate, just 2 shots sent the old antique into the sky. At the same time, more ship coffins launched attacks without knowing the consequences. In the chaos of the battle, all these ship coffins avoided the leeward flaming rows and prioritized attacking outsiders like them. And each of them is as relentless as a dogskin plaster. A semi-encirclement was formed on this side, blocking out all the small pirate ships that followed. Faced with this unexpected situation, Redbeard's face turned pale, and he instructed his first mate Jackal Harvey behind him. Send a signal and have all our pirate ships break through the blockade of the coffins and get closer to us. Violet didn't know at first that the battleship's leeward side had a weakness in catching waves, but they themselves were very clear about it. After realizing that the opponent had successfully hidden in his only blind spot for attack, he knew that it would be difficult to defeat the enemy unless he got help from his own pirate fleet. Most of the 6 congressmen from the same camp had arrived at the battlefield one after another within 3 hours. But the other side assembled faster, and even formed a crooked queue imitating a naval battle line. Moreover, as the assembly signal was given, the privateers and small pirate ships seemed not to see it at all. Redbeard put down the telescope in annoyance and gnashed his teeth, so much money was wasted. Not only those free pirates who temporarily joined us, but also the privateering fleet and those middle-level captains I personally trained, not a single one was willing to risk breaking through the siege and come to support us. What a bunch of ungrateful bastards! They were caught off guard by Violet, and with enemies on all sides, it was only natural for them to save their lives first. Redbeard also knew that it was indeed a bit too harsh for him to allow those small pirates who were not strong enough to even protect themselves to break out and rescue him. However, just as he finished speaking, he unexpectedly discovered a small 3-masted sailing ship as fast as an arrow flying towards him. A familiar figure was standing at the bow of the boat, waving at him from afar. Looking at his anxious look, he almost wants to jump onto his boat immediately. When he saw his face clearly, Redbeard felt warm in his heart, and even his eyes, which had always been cold, became slightly warm. He couldn't help but sigh. Look, all of you, Edward the Redbeard, still have loyal subjects under my command after all.